Try to keep things moving. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Are you ready? Okay.
Spice FM.
Yes, it is 11 minutes after 6. Good morning and welcome to Kenya's biggest conversation. It's the Situation Room. In a new month, just like that, Q2 has begun, the 3rd day of April 2023. City Muga, Mambo's,
Mambo mazuri sana.
Mambo Freshi.
Kabisa.
How was your weekend?
My weekend was interesting.
Uh-huh.
There was a little more activity. I met with relatives.
Uh-huh.
Had chats with relatives.
Uh-huh.
Something that doesn't happen very often.
Mm-hmm.
Not because the relatives don't exist. It's just that I don't meet them very often.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
How was it? Catching up with relatives?
It was good, actually. Yes. It was good.
Felt good.
You keep asking yourself, why? How come you don't do this very often?
It feels nice. Huh?
Yes. Then you realize you feel that way because it doesn't happen
Because it
very
doesn't happen often.
Yes.
If it were to happen often,
Then I would feel otherwise.
you'd have other feelings.
Yes. But I realize it is a good thing to ensure that one visits and one sees and one talks. One allows oneself to be visited by relatives as often as you can.
Yes.
Yes.
It's important. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. Ndu?
Yeah.
How was yours?
It was all right.
Really?
Yeah.
Uh-huh. Good. Good. What did you do?
What did I do? I watched movies, actually. And then I went
If you
to
can
church.
remember.
And then I went to church. It was Palm Sunday, yesterday.
Okay. So you did like that.
It was a quiet weekend, more or less, really. And I hope it would really rain the way it's raining this morning. But hey, it didn't. And here we are.
It has rained heavily overnight.
Yes, it has. It's good.
But come the morning, yeah.
It's still raining. Come the morning, it's still raining.
No, it's the chaos that rain brings.
That's it. That's it.
This should be a time of joy and rejoicing.
Yeah.
But it rarely is. Because transport becomes tricky. Travel becomes tricky.
Yeah, everything slows down. And
Yes. So,
still finding a little sliver of thankfulness for the rain, however. It's good that it's...
Yeah, it's good that it's raining.
Yeah.
It's good that it's raining. It's a good thing.
How are you doing?
I'm well. Yes.
How was your weekend?
It was good as well. Had a nice time visiting some friends on Saturday. And then on Sunday, chilling.
Super duper.
Yes. Let me tell you what we'll be discussing today. So today is the anniversary of the Garissa University terror attack. 8 years later, we'll be joined by one of the survivors of that attack, Rosemary Chalo, who will be here with us in the studio, alongside a psychologist, Dr. Oscar Gedua, looking back into those 8 years. How's the healing process been and all? Okay, that is at 7 a.m. At 8 o'clock. So now that Azimio has heeded the truce and on the IEBC panel, we'll be joined by two people in the studio. One of them is Dr. Fred Ogola. He's a governance and political analyst. And the other one is Gerard Bitoka, political analyst. Let's look at what happened over the weekend. So it was deemed to be the mother of all demonstrations are going to take place today. And then kidogo. President speaks, kidogo. Raila speaks, and that is gone. Like that. So, shall we discuss that at 8 o'clock? Yes. And then at 9 a.m., we'll be joined by a community organizer at the Kongamano la Mapinduzi, Mwalimu Mutemi Wakema. He'll be here to tell us why the Kenyan economic system does not serve Kenyans. Quite a radical thinker. He'll be joining us at 9 a.m. for that conversation. Sasawa. Ednah, someone is saying that the YouTube feed was not working a couple of minutes ago. Is it okay now? It's now fine. Yes, it is. That's it. Angola Linda, the YouTube feed is working. We are live streaming on YouTube and Facebook. Kenya's biggest conversation. Tell us where you're locked in from. After we take a look at the weather forecast, we will do our usual shout out. 16 minutes after 6.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Cloudy conditions at 16 this morning, a little bit more than cloudy. Rain's coming down. We'll see highs of 24 and lows of 14 into Monday. It's 16 and mostly cloudy in Nakuru, highs of 25, and we'll see highs of 25 in a mostly cloudy Nyeri at 16. It's cloudy and a bit of rain in Eldoret this morning at 14, highs of 24, and looking into a mostly clear Mombasa at 27. We'll see highs of 32 and lows of 26. 27 is what it is in Malindi as well, and cloudy, highs of 32 and lows of 26. Mostly cloudy conditions and some rain this morning in Kisumu at 19, highs of 26 and lows of 18. And at 17 degrees, Kakamega will experience rain this morning as well, highs of 26 and lows of 15. Looking out into Kampala, it is cloudy at 19, highs of 25 and lows of 19. And it's partly cloudy in Dar es Salaam at 26, highs of 30 and lows of 25. It's 13 and cloudy in Johannesburg, highs of 23 and lows of 12. Lagos will see a cloudy Monday morning at 27 currently, highs of 32. And 24 is what it is in Kinshasa. Mostly clear, highs of 33 and lows of 24. It's 15 and cloudy looking out into Beijing Monday afternoon. 17 degrees will be the high and lows of 11. 6 degrees and cloudy in Paris, highs of 12 and lows of 2. And we'll see lows of 1 in a mostly cloudy London at 4 degrees. It's 6 degrees and clear Sunday night in New York coming into Monday. We'll see highs of 11 and lows of 2.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right.
96, who is online?
Andrew Franklin says, good morning from a powerless Bernard estate. Now, powerless, meaning people have no strength as citizens, or KPLC has done like that.
Or both.
Or both. Andrew, which one is it? Good morning to you. Linda, your issues have been sorted. No, YouTube is on and crack-a-lacking. Baraka Katana is tuning this morning and says, spicy fire. Well, good morning to you too. Livingston Akala is locked and tuned. Helen Jogona says, okay, Helen Jogona is now greeting Elijah Kimani and says, good morning. Okay, we should be greeting yourselves using us, so no wala. Henry Nyabuto is tuned in this morning and says, says good morning. Okay, this is an interesting name. Wananyuki, I can't read the first name, but good morning to you. Timboroa, that cold, deliciously cold place, is where Clemo is this morning and says, good morning. Ondicho says, good morning to you. Tuned in from Mwingi. The truth is welcome. Well, all right. Atieno says, good morning, 254-042 is tuning in this morning. Okay. Kenya 1, he says, Mbele itakuwa sawa. Sikunjama, big team of the conversations. To you too, my man. Okech Willington says, good morning, guys. Eric, Ndu, and Siti, I love you so much for the good work you're doing. Asante Sana, tuning in from Nakuru. Gatondo, good morning, my crew. That's where Moses Mirimo is, and says, sound naleta shida yawa.
Wapi?
Why now? In Gatondo.
Allah.
For why? Pourquoi? He says, good morning. Enjoy your day, won't you? Evans, sorry. Leo hakuna holiday. No, there is not. Come, wake up. Go to work or school or whatever it is that you do. But wake up. Okay. Moniz Janeth is complaining and says our audio engineer has a problem. What's going on? Okay, I think everything should be all right now. Just keep tuning and see where you are. Paul Burrow says, good morning, tuned in from Bamburi. Eriko, bado tuko juu ya meza.
Kabisa.
Miliona.
Cruising.
Somebody on Vibes Radio there called Diego is also very happy.
To victory.
Jane Dota says, good morning. What is it? Onjiko says, good morning, CT Eric and our sister from Lagos. I'm not from Lagos. Tuning from Awasi in Kisumu County. Okay. Jeffrey Mochama says he's tuning from Kisumu. Everybody has woken up today. How far? Chris says good morning. He's tuning from Kakamega. Ivewa Francis tuning from Mombasa. And Alfredson bin Kifaruson. Hey. Wow. All right. He's also tuned in. Bernard Hamati says he's tuned in. Wiseman here with us. Luke Barasa tuned in from Kisumu as always. He says courage is what it takes to stand up and speak and or listen. I think we heard that from the president yesterday. Average, good morning, everybody and all in studio. Why average? No, we don't do average, man. Peter Wagongo tuned in this morning. And, okay, everybody. You guys are many this morning. I'm so glad
Wherever
to see all
you
of
are.
you. Karibuni.
Welcome. City? Where do we go this week?
We are not going far from a DRC. Next door.
Next door east, next
Congo
door
Republic.
west. Okay.
Otherwise known as Congo Brazzaville.
Voila.
Otherwise known as Bakongo. Actually, it's interesting because that name Congo, there are those who argue it is named after River Congo, okay, or Congo River. Now, the name River Congo is derived from Congo, a Bantu kingdom, which existed in that region before and around the time the Portuguese were reported to have arrived there in 1483 or 4 or thereabouts. It would take just 1 year like this. Okay, so that's where the name Congo comes from.
How did the Portuguese all go all the way up?
Yes. Sorry?
So they went up the river from the delta.
Yes.
From where the river meets the
Atlantic. Yes.
Hey, Portuguese.
You know, then they came to trade.
Hey.
This issue of colonization was not on their mind at that particular time. Remember Congolization? Colonization got momentum with the partition of Africa. That's when it gathered momentum. Prior to that, people were just trading, visiting.
Whether they're trading in humans.
Mostly human, really, because, yes. So, anyway. Oddly enough, that particular word also means hunter.
Congo.
Yes, hunter.
Congo is a hunter.
Hunter. Yes. What they were hunting, different matter altogether, isn't it?
Yeah.
Right. Why don't we look at the proverbs? Number 1 proverb today from Congo Brazzaville If the needle doesn't pass, the thread won't follow it.
If the needle
Doesn't pass, the thread won't follow it.
It's true.
Thread can't go before needle.
It's very true.
So the needle has got to pass first.
First things first.
Then thread
And the thread follows.
does follow.
Alrighty. Higher. Headlines. Let's say Vitu.
Kuja chuku wa vitu. Wewe nangalia.
Wewe naangalia.
Yes.
Asante sana.
Mimi naangalia Standard. Intrigues that led to the big climb down. All right. After weeks of hardened positions, President William Ruto offers an olive branch. Isn't it interesting that on the same Palm Sunday when people are waving branches, the president offered an olive branch. Okay. By proposing a bipartisan approach through Parliament to resolve the issues. Azimio leader Raila Odinga calls off protests amid conditions. We'll look at that. Government out to muzzle media. That was the editors' protest yesterday. We saw that. And then maybe not, because the president came back later and said, us, muzzle media, never. Even if they're biased, as the day is long, nobody is touching the media. So, rest assured. Isaac Hassan has written a book, and he's talking about how politicians held the IEBC captive. Remember who he is or was? He is. He's not dead. He is.
Who?
Isaac
Yeah,
Hassan.
but the was is the position.
Yeah, the
he
was
held.
is the position. Yeah. So he sat at the helm of the IEBC as the chairman. He's written a book. It's being serialized across papers today. He's talking about the drama of Bomas ahead of poll results in the serialization of his newly penned book. So that would be interesting to look at. Okay, not so good news on the front page of the Daily Nation. New STI strains. Scientists find 2 strains of sexually transmitted diseases, and they're new and they're being labeled. So we're going to look at that. Court told how Maribe and Joey Drew murder plan. Okay. Fresh squeeze as banks raise the cost of loans. We will see that the cost of credit is going to go higher as the base lending rate is increasing by the central bank. And that will mean that everybody's loans are going to go up within this month.
Okay.
In terms of what you're paying.
Okay.
Reason at last is what the nation calls the truce or makings of a truce that we saw yesterday. Voila.
Nation?
That's what I've
Do you remember? Paka back page.
Yeah.
Surely.
Mimi leo,
All
chop,
right.
chop, brother.
The Business Daily, the front page, the big one. CBK boardroom shakeup faces exit legal headache. The CBK faces another headache in complying with the law requiring staggered replacement of its directors as the term of 6 of the 7 board members comes to an end. Hey. 2 of the 7 board members are the governor, Patrick Njoroge, and the chairman, Mohamed Nyaoga, who will exit on 17th of June, making the first round of the directors' overhaul of the CBK. The second round of the board shake-up will happen in December next year, when the terms of 4 directors will end at once, highlighting the difficulty of complying with regulations requiring phased replacements. Practiced mainly in U.S. corporate law, staggered boards are often used to prevent hostile takeovers and provide continuity through a smooth transition. But in our case, Governor Chairman out in June. Then next year, 3 going. And then we'll have 2 new deputy governors and a governor by the end of this year. Higher. Other headline. Bets plunge by 240 billion shillings after Betin and SportsPesa crackdown. So annual reports, sports betting revenues have dropped by 240 billion shillings from their peak in 2019, following a government policy to clamp down on gambling that triggered the forced exit of Betin Kenya and the temporal closure of SportsPesa. So it's a result of what we saw. Ticker headlines, new digital tax plan promises to earn Kenya a windfall. They're also looking at why National Oil was locked out of the UAE fuel deal. But it's because Gulf oil companies rejected a proposal to use National Oil to import fuel on credit due to its poor cash position. Another headline, squatters buy 101 million extra Kakuzi shares Individuals living around Kakuzi more than doubled their stake in the listed firm to 2.38% in the year ended December through transactions valued at 101 million shillings. The investors, through Kakuzi Neighborhood Development Foundation, raised their stake by 250,000 shares. So neighbors are buying more and more of that Kambun. City?
Yes.
The Star.
No, I didn't get the Star this morning, oddly enough.
For real?
Yes, for real.
Sheesh. Okay.
I didn't. My peoples didn't have the Star.
They didn't have it, huh?
But I got the
East African. And it's a new week.
It is a new week.
Uh-huh.
Right, the headline, the East African, Mathuki. This is the Secretary General of the East African Community. After Somalia, it's Ethiopia. EAC sets its sights on more members as it seeks to grow trade, integrate further. That is the top left-hand corner.
So after we bring on Somalia onto the EAC, we now go for Ethiopia.
Yes.
With its 100 million people.
Yes,
So
or
we-
thereabouts.
We become 500 million just like that.
Yes, that's what they're saying. It makes negotiations that much more potent in our favor. Yes.
Uh-huh.
Then on the right top hand corner in blue, Odinga versus Ruto, AU West speak. Concerned over ugly turn of protests, they ask both parties to end standoff. Then lower down, there's an interesting one. Bang in the middle of the paper, US gets Kigali to toe the line again. Why we choose these headlines sometimes, I'm wondering. Toe the line, which line? Under deal brokered by Qatar, a compromise was reached to help Kigali avoid sanctions, while US put pressure on DR Congo over FDLR threat.
Uh-huh.
Yes. Amidst all this, something happened, and then something happened, and then again something also
Something
happened.
else happened.
And then everything happened at once. Yes. And all this was brokered by Qatar, the country.
Okay.
Yes. And the leadership.
Okay.
Right.
29 to 7. Let's take a quick break to take a look at the traffic, and then we look at those stories in detail.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Not too much of an issue right now with traffic. We're looking at Jogger Road is piling up though. As you get towards Landis, and there's always traffic there getting on towards Kamkunji. How many times can you say in one sentence? Okay, so we're looking at traffic also coming off the Thika Superhighway. Likely to continue through past the Outer Ring Junction, heading out towards the Pangani Underpass. It's also busy on the Northern Bypass. Folks are trying to get through towards Kiambu Road, and we will see traffic. It'll pile up there closer to 7 o'clock as we know it too. The rain is still coming down in some parts. That means folks are moving a lot slower. Let's keep an eye on things and see what that turns out to be. Gong Road, pretty busy as well. And we're looking at some action coming in from Naivasha Road out towards the junction as you get towards Riara Road out through towards James Gishuru. You're going to get, and traffic is going to connect from Ndima Springs. James Gishuru already starting to look busy as you cross over towards Waiyaki Way. So it's going to be a busy morning. The rain is still coming down. Folks are getting out on Monday morning, so let's just keep an eye out and see what's going to look like. Tell us what's going on in your neck of the woods, and then let's talk on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Okay, quite a number of things going on. So Isaac Hassan has penned a book, and it's being serialized in the papers. Let's look at some of the things that he wrote. And I think it's interesting that it has come out right about now. Former IEBC chairman, in his new book, says politicians have always tried to influence the appointments of commissioners and other decisions that put intense pressure on staff. This is one of the issues that led to the stand down from both sides, being President William Ruto and Raila Odinga. This is one of the things, isn't it? The appointments of the new IEBC. Then President says, okay, fine, let's have a chat about it and let it go through Parliament. Okay. Now, Isaac Hassan in his book says, look, this has really been a bone of contention. It is one of the things that actually saw us live in some kind of turmoil, according to him. The book is called The Referee of a Dirty Game in the Theatre of Kenya's Elections, an insider's account. He doles out insider tales of a commission held captive from outside, but also inadvertently reveals his own maneuvers to win favour with politicians and interest groups. From the book, Isaac says, from the moment he landed at Anniversary Towers, first as an interim Independent Electoral Commission chair and later as the Independent Electoral and Boundaries Commission, he was handed a powerful understudy in the name of former Commissioner CEO James Oswago. He was to checkmate and tame him in operational matters. On the day he placed his bid as the IEBC boss position at the instigation of NARC Kenya leader Martha Karua, he was called by former Chief Justice Ivan Kesheru and offered position of judge. So, no, don't take this one, take this one, right? But he was only given 5 hours to make up his mind. Karua, in her final hours as Justice and Constitutional Affairs Minister, had prodded Isaac to apply after noticing the grandstanding at a political level. He said, I would like to apply for the position. It is becoming tougher within the coalition to pick a suitable candidate as political leaders affiliated with ODM keep shooting down everyone being proposed. We are encouraging people from the smaller communities and minorities to apply for the position to bring in a balance. He quotes Martha Karua as having said, 4 men would play critical roles in his future battles, and they helped him navigate through this conundrum. 2 of them, Justice Mohammed Warsame and lawyer Ahmed Nasir Abdullahi, wanted him to drop the IIEC position and go for the position of judge, while 2 others, Supreme Court judges Mohammed Ibrahim and Isaac Lenaola, wanted him to go for the IIEC. He said he was a bit suspicious about the offer that CJ Gisheru made. It seemed laced with an agenda, probably to bait him into withdrawing his candidature for the commission position, or so he thought. He opted for the IIEC job. He reveals that ahead of the interview, he was coached by 2 members of the PSC from his backyard, Aidan Dwale and Sophia Abdi, on what to expect at the parliamentary grilling. He said he was briefed. A team from the Northeastern leadership was quickly assembled to do the necessary bidding on his behalf. Many things happened at the same time. As he goes through all of this, it's clear one thing was very clear. It was not just a matter of, here's a job, apply for it, take the job.
Qualifications and all.
No.
There's a lot of politics being played in the
Absolutely.
background.
There were phone calls. Apply for this, do not apply for this. No, you apply for this, don't apply for this. But it was clear that this position was, quote unquote, tampered with by very many people who had vested interest in who the IEBC chairman was going to be. And one thing was clear for him, that it would show that there was a certain amount of manipulation then that could occur if your person was at the helm of the IEBC. Is it an independent commission? It would be interesting for you to give your opinions thereafter. If you read some of the things that he's actually said, I had an opportunity to read an excerpt from it, and very interesting what he's saying here, that you guys are thinking it's independent.
Hakuna mambo independence.
Hakuna kitu kama hiyo.
His politicians have a lot to say. And he goes on to say, now, this was the IIEC. So after taking over the it was interim independent. It was right after the post-election violence. This is the body that was going to manage by elections thereafter, and then also manage the referendum in 2010. They did a stellar job at the referendum. People were happy. It's happy. It starts like that. People were very happy with how the IIEC conducted the referendum because it went one way. And then now we had to now amalgamate IIEC and the IBRC, the Independent Boundaries Review Commission, and bring them together. And he was told he now also being the chairman of IIEC, would you like to take up the job of IEBC chairman, who now becomes the... He goes on to say about how he met with the former Prime Minister Raila Odinga, and he told him, Prime Minister, I need your confirmation on this matter. Please look me in the eye and tell me whether you have confidence in me as I apply for the position of IEBC chair. Raila said, I have no problem with you, Chairman, but the commissioners will not be coming back. The other commissioners.
You were okay. Those are the guys.
This is after the 2013 election. It's all these issues of the independence of the Electoral Commission. It's independence from whom? From politicians. Because voters have no issue with the IEBC. And so when you see that even now the conversation that's going to take place, at the parliamentary level will be on constitution of the IEBC panel. Excuse me.
Bless you.
Yeah.
Bless you.
It just comes to that issue because politicians are going to decide to have a conversation on how they pick the IEBC.
Yeah.
At the heart of the discussion about our electoral system, it's never really the discussion about the electoral system. It's about the influence that politicians want to exert on it. In fact, to perhaps put a nice spotlight on this particular discussion, there is an opinion in the East African that talks about us Kenyans. Who?
Us Kenyans.
I want to read this thing so that Kenyans can listen and understand how other East Africans view us. Okay? Many East Africans often see Kenyans as ill-mannered, too pushy, greedy, its politicians too as unprincipled and crooked. Other East Africans also see those failings as Kenya's biggest virtues.
Virtues?
Yes, the greed and pushiness are ambition and drive. And its corrupt and immoral politics, a high form of pragmatism and political common sense. The one question other Africans ask me most about Kenya is how its politicians are able to jump in and out of bed with others so energetically. Whenever a new dawn arrives, every politician has a chance to eat. Every deal is possible. No betrayal is unthinkable.
Good Lord, you Kenyans. Sheesh.
So against that backdrop.
Wow.
Yes, Charles Onyango Bo had this little thing to say. An observation, no less.
It's an observation.
Yes, and I dare say how very accurate.
You Kenyans. You Kenyans.
Yes, us Kenyans.
Us Kenyans. And the things that we do.
Now, if this is us, what do you think is going to happen when you have an electoral commission?
Imagine.
Man. I mean, it's like we put in whoever is put in there and you're set up to fail from the get-go. It doesn't matter what you do, how you twist, how you turn, how well you manage. It doesn't matter.
Yeah.
Yes.
It doesn't matter what you do, there will always be. And that's the thing. I think the conversation should shift by us Kenyans, again, saying how we want the IEBC to be constituted.
Yes.
Remove the influence of the politicians from it. Remember when we had Edwin Sifuna here last week, and he started saying something, started pushing back, but we let it pass. He said, in his considered opinion, the most important stakeholder in the election is the political player. And that's why they all need to be looking at this book from the same page. And that cannot be it. The most important person in an election is the voter. It's not the candidate.
The politician in this country has endeavored and has managed to secure a position where they are the most important purveyors of the opinions that anyone seeks in the country.
Yep.
Okay?
Yep.
So that everything, and they've got to a point where they believe it is their right. And that is why they can very blatantly look after their own interests in the most bizarre, blatant, XYZ way you can actually think of.
Yeah.
And with every electoral cycle, you see it.
Yep.
They get into power, and the
they
moment
keep entrenching it.
Immediately,
Politicians have actually done that over time, and we've discussed this on this show before. Over time, politicians have positioned themselves as the most important element in our society.
Yes.
Are you thinking of a funeral? Think politician. Are you thinking of taking your child to school? Think politician. Are you thinking of feeding yourself? Think politician.
Yes.
Are you thinking of a hospital? Think politician. Are you thinking of going to church? Think, is a politician going to come?
Are you launching something?
Are you launching
Invite
something?
a politician.
Think politician. You have a radio show? Think politician. As in everything.
You want to enhance your career? Think
politician.
Exactly. You want to grow rich? Think politician. Yes.
Yeah.
Because
You want to grow rich, think of becoming a politician.
No. Think politician because they have ensured that they've weaved their way. Yes, become a politician also, but think politician in the sense that in the absence of their influence, some of these money-making schemes will not be possible. You see? They've weaved their way and intertwined themselves into the very fabric of each and everything.
Yeah.
And they've taken pole position.
Kila kitu, it's them. You cannot start a business and let that business thrive without thinking politician.
And if you think, should it thrive, then you will understand the power of that politician or the politicians.
Yeah.
So, but you see, they have understood that the way you go about it is you make sure that every conversation begins, it's paraphrased, it's punctuated with the people.
Yeah.
To make it seem as though the people are front and center of their thought and beat.
Yes, it is.
When in actuality, it is not.
Yeah.
No.
It's just it's a smoke screen, or you're just used as the dummy for this project. You're not the real thing.
No, you're not.
You are the orange for the juice.
Exactly. Exactly.
You are in the blender.
They blend you, they finish you
Out. Look at what happened yesterday, all right? What the president spoke about was everything else, or IEBC selection panel, blah, blah, blah. That was the main issue, okay? What Raila spoke about was IEBC selection panel. This issue of UNGA.
Suddenly, where is it?
When the president was asked about UNGA, he said, but UNGA, we've been doing a lot of work. I mean, we are importing maize.
He actually said yesterday, we have plans.
We are importing maize, we are importing grain. That is what we are addressing with UNGA. We have fertilizer, UNGA.
That one is
Raila
sorted.
was asked the same thing about UNGA. We'll talk in parliament. I thought this mandamano was primarily about UNGA.
You thought?
When did IEBC become the main issue then?
People are hungry. Do you really think they care about the IEBC selection?
I can tell you in a
No, I mean, in all honesty, do you really think?
They do not. Let me. If you can land this plane, in 3 weeks, 2 weeks, children will be sitting exams. I read a very, very, very scary statistic yesterday that you have 25% of children who went to school in January who have not finished paying their school fees and will not sit exams if they don't pay.
Why are we having this discussion? Why are they not sitting for the exams? Why is it? Can't they sit?
They don't have money to pay school fees.
You know this.
And here we are talking about IEBC selection panel.
Yeah.
You know this.
That's the issue.
This is truly...
It's annoying, isn't it?
It is truly off. How do you discuss everything that you want to talk about and consider it to be important when children cannot meet the fundamental rights that the Constitution bestows upon them? This is a right that they have.
And you will go home. You will go home.
We're not even talking about the grade 7s.
No. That's and this is it's very interesting.
Grade 7s have not started, as in a term is coming to an end in a few weeks' time.
Yes, it is. And this, I'm not talking about that I heard. I saw somebody at the supermarket complex, whatever it was, and she was with her 2 sons. So I asked her, it's Friday. Why? They're not in school. I thought, okay, are they sick? Are they going to a clinic? She just told me very plainly that they were asked to go home because
School fees.
And people
And
aren't
she
paying
doesn't know
school
where she's
fees
going to
because
get
they don't
it.
have the money.
by the 11th of April, when they go back to school after Easter.
But we are now going to have a very proper conversation in the next, bipartisan conversation about composition of IEBC and what else we can do politically.
Money from Treasury has not been released for grade 7.
Right. While we are beginning to sing that song, why don't we just also say that money from the Treasury has also not been released to the counties?
We are into April and they have not received money since December.
Okay. So, are they being strangled to death?
But
Or-
it's the problem.
This
you know
is
why
it.
money has not left the treasury? Because the IEBC panel has not been put in place.
No, I don't think you've got it right. It is because the price of unga has not gone down.
That's why we've not released money from the
Yes.
treasury.
That-
No, it's because the server has not been opened.
Okay.
If you open the server tomorrow,
Children
counties,
will go to school, counties will get money, price of unga down.
you open the server. So that we stop calling this man Mr. Ruto. And maybe if he actually truly won this election, we can call him President Ruto. Then that time now, as the president, he can now release money.
Can
But
release
before
money.
then,
So all these things are actually holding the money at treasury. Isn't it?
Yes.
Okay, and are they also holding the dollar at the same time? Because the dollar is still a bit finicky and it's...
No,
it's
that is Ukraine.
that's Ukraine.
Yeah.
Ukraine that's holding the dollar. Okay, now the drought, that has the rain sorted that one out?
No, we prayed and it rained.
you see, the drought is global warming.
It's
That's
global
climate
warming.
change.
It's climate change.
Yeah.
No. I think it's carbon footprint.
That one. Because you people cut trees. Surely.
God Almighty.
Hii ni Kenya, my friend. Kama hujai sikia. Na sikia sasa. Hii ni Kenya. Haya. The governor of Meru County is called who? The governor of Meru County.
Mwangasa.
Called Kawira Mwangaza.
Ngaza.
Kawira Mwangaza. Meru Governor Kawira Mwangaza is struggling to figure out how to pay 536 million shillings bill that an investor wants the county government to settle. The money was obtained through a court settlement against former Governor Kiraitu Murungi's administration after an investor successfully sued the county government. But it's Governor Kawira who is now grappling with the dilemma of whether to pay or not to pay the amount requested by the investor as compensation for the loss of his investment. High Court Judge Patrick Jeremy Otieno ordered the county to pay more than 339 million shillings to the owners of Leopard Rock in Meru National Park. The amount has been gaining interest since the award. Justice Otieno awarded the amount to Leopard Rock Michael Limited, evicted by the Kiraitu administration from the park, which was recommended by a chartered arbitrator, Calvin Nyachoti, on December 19, 2019. Kiraitu's deputy Titus Ntoshio had in the past said by evicting the investor, they were executing a notice to the investor to vacate issued by their predecessor, the former governor, Peter Munya. Now Kawira Mwangaza is saying, we don't have any money to pay, surely.
But even as we know, because Kawira has not received money.
So that we can attempt to forge an amicable way forward, it's unfortunate to see such resources that would earn us revenue lying dormant and in abject disrepair. We must exploit all our resources for the collective benefit of the people. I urge county employees to handle investors ethically and within set legal frameworks to avoid paying astronomical amounts of money in damages due to negligence. Investors help our county to grow directly and indirectly. So this Leopard Rock is in the park. It's been operating. It's kicked out. First by who? Munya. Then enforced by who?
Kiraitu Murungi.
Investor goes to court and says, surely, these guys just came and kicked me out of... I was operating a business in the park. We didn't go follow due process, blah, 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 blah. Arbitrator says, yes. Nyachoti arbitrator says, yeah, actually, pay these people. Go to court. Nini. Judge says, give them money as compensation.
But now
Money
Kawira
was not
doesn't
there.
have money.
So every single day, today, by the end of the day today, interest going up. Then there's this man called John Waruke. John Waruke is the MP for Sirisia constituency.
Yes.
He is revealing how his political friends abandoned him after he was charged in the 313 million shillings NCPB fraud case last year. Speaking during the funeral service of political mobilizer Joseph Kubenda in Bahai Village, Kimilili constituency, Bungoma County, the MP alleged that Azimio leaders frustrated him and deserted him. These are the same people who wooed me to join Azimio and promised to ensure the graft case I was facing is dropped.
Excuse me.
They promised to ensure that his case was going to be dropped. But that never happened. He says he regretted ditching UDA for Azimio. Imagine if I had not signing a call at the other side. I was Ruto and UDA's point man in Bungoma before I was duped by this Azimio people. Oluke said he has learnt his lesson and he has decided to work with the government for the sake of the people of Bungoma. He is going to work with the Ruto administration.
Okay, excuse me, please.
Yeah?
I have a question.
Ask.
He said for the fraud case that he's facing. The guy was convicted.
Yeah.
and
But now
sentenced.
they were going to do things so that he's set free. Azimio told him, I took on a system.
Azimio may have told him, but Azimio are not in power.
That was then.
That's
Yes.
why he's saying, had he listened, had he properly whatever.
So he calculated, and so kitu vile inaenda system iko pande hii nini.
Yeah, but still,
Told Ruto of my friend, where?
Kando.
Kando.
But he still would not
Jumped.
have benefited because this government has told us in plain words that they are a government that follows the rule of law.
This one.
Yes, and the rule of law, law, quote, is what sentence Waluke, rule of law. So even if he was in
order.
yes, his fate would still be in fact, it might be worse because
See, that's why
when you apply
that
the
is
rule
what-
of law,
that is, you see, these ones are following rule of law.
Yes.
The other guys of Azimio had told him, you come.
them they are
Him-
not mentioned. They are not mentioned rule of law.
They had told him, he mambo yako, he specifically,
Sorted.
tutamaliza. That's why he went to Azimio.
So
He
what was this actually telling?
Remember, he got the Jubilee direct ticket.
Yeah,
There was
he
no
did.
nomination, nyef, those
Yes.
things. Got Jubilee direct ticket.
Yes.
He won the seat.
Okay. So
Now
what-
these guys did not win their seat. Animi has won.
And him, he
his.
has won. He did his part, surely.
Now he's left there. He has this Jubilee ticket.
Can you imagine?
Those people can't sort him out.
Can
He
you
decided
imagine?
now,
But-
forget about my
no, no.
issues. I am now going to focus on the people.
Nobody's
For the sake of his people, he went back now. He's
He's
working
being
with the
unfair.
government.
he's being unfair.
Why?
To who?
How many people who've been sentenced can remain MP and you're
I'm telling you.
and you're silly yapping away telling people how people are unfair and yet you are convicted. Essentially, you're a felon. Okay.
You know, he's just adding, the spotlight. Now he's just adding more
we had
spotlight.
forgotten about him.
Yeah.
Nicely.
Now he's reminding us that he's actually a convicted felon.
So,
Walking about here as though he didn't do anything.
but I am glad that Mweshimiwa has spoken because I am glad. Because he's highlighting something that when we speak of, it may seem as though we like hiding things which are not necessarily that important. Okay? Someone is sentenced. The matter goes forward. He's told, excuse me, Ndugu, it's like this. You are guilty.
Excuse me, sorry, please. When you are sentenced, Shebi, it means that you had been convicted as
Yes,
charged.
yes. That's what it
Or
means.
there's another something.
No, they even gave him the number of this particular scholarship.
67.
It was given a time span.
67 years.
Precisely. Now, you are out. You are still MP.
Then now you're still shouting. Stop it to keep quiet.
Why? He's in office legally.
You know, he is in
So
office.
he should be saying my case should go away.
He's talking for his people.
He actually opened his mouth. Do you know what he has done? He opened his mouth to say that,
He was
had I been
thanking-
on the other side, they would have helped me. I would have been sorted. But now that I have seen that these guys have played me, it's okay. Let me just work for the people.
I'm working with, I'm on the side of the government for the
Suggesting
people.
that if his case had gone away, he would not be working for the people.
No, he'd have sorted out his case and then work for the people.
Okay.
Now he's decided, forget about my case. Let me just work for the people. The people are more important. There come a time. There come a time
This is terrible.
when the people are more
Charles
important.
Onyango Obo may have been right. Can I tell you something very quickly?
Quick,
It's
yes.
winding down. Okay. Alarm, ding ding. As new STI strains have been discovered, medics have warned Kenyans to be vigilant following the discovery of 2 new strains of STIs. Scientists at the Kenya Medical Research Institute, KEMRI, have found 2 mutations they say have never been seen in genes associated with gonorrhea and chlamydia in the country. The discovery came as investigators sought to understand why 2 hospitals in Busia County, which borders Uganda, were recording rising strains of cases of STIs. Professor Samson Moore, the assistant principal research scientist at the Center for Microbiology, disclosed that they were shocked to find that all 424 Kenyan women aged 15 years and above sampled from the 2 hospitals tested positive for gonorrhea and chlamydia. He said the information was collected under characteristics that are still under analysis, and they'll soon know how many used protection, the histories with with using antibiotics, as many indicated that they'd used them before, comorbidities, if any, and if they have similar infections before. So what they're saying is that...
So there's a new strain of what?
There's a new strain of gonorrhea and chlamydia. And as you go on to read this article, you'll find that some are not responding to antibiotics. And so they're wondering, wagwan?
Kimeumana.
Sana.
Where?
Yeah.
Higher. Keep it here for more conversations coming up in the next hour. We want to talk about the Garissa University attack 8 years on. How's the university doing? And especially, how are the survivors coping? Good morning, 7 a.m.
Spice up your life.
Good morning, this is Newswam Dennis Aseto. Azimio la Umoja, one Kenya party leader Raila Odinga has called off protest planned to take place today to allow dialogue with the government. Raila said the Azimio la Umoja coalition party made the decision after President William Ruto expressed willingness to address their concerns through a bipartisan approach.
As leaders, it is our responsibility in Azimio la Umoja to save this country from the catastrophe. We as Azimio la Umoja, we acknowledge Mr. Ruto's olive branch for a dialogue on key issues raised by Azimio la Umoja. To us, this is a positive development. We agree that a balanced parliamentary process, co-chaired by both sides and backed by experts from outside, should proceed. In our view, this committee must be composed with immediate effect, with strict deadlines for resolving the crisis facing the country. In view of the foregoing, we stand down our demonstrations for Monday, April 3rd, 2023. 6.
In his statement, President Ruto urged the opposition to call off demonstrations and suggested to have the concerns raised, such as the reconstitution of IEBC selection panel, be addressed through a parliamentary process.
The IEBC selection panel and the future process of recruitment of its commissioners could as well be part of a conversation leading to constitutionally and legally binding proposals through a bipartisan parliamentary process. In other words, I am suggesting that the issues that have been raised by our friends on the matter of IEBC, my suggestion is that this matter can be handled in Parliament by a bipartisan parliamentary process so that we can agree on what it is they have an issue with, and we can adjust as is agreed and as necessary.
However, Raila warned that if the process fails to resolve the issues, the opposition will resume demonstrations after 1 week.
We want to emphasize that the right to assemble, to demonstrate, petition, and speak are ironclad as provided for in our Constitution. Therefore, we reserve our rights to call for demonstrations should this process not bear fruit. Should there be no meaningful engagement or response from Hon Ruto to our counter offer, we resolve to resume our demonstrations after 1 week.
Earlier, the Kenya Conference of Catholic Bishops had asked the opposition to call off the anti-government protests. Conference chairperson Archbishop Martin Kivuva said the violence and destruction of property witnessed during the demonstrations is causing more harm to Kenyans and the country's economy. Kivuva spoke after leading the faithful in marking the Palm Sunday celebrations at St. Joseph Catholic Church in Chuda, Mombasa.
We ask our president, as we already did before, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, in all humility, to bend his heart and feel for our country. We ask Honorable Raila Amolo Odinga to hear the cry of the many Kenyans.
And President William Ruto said that the government has no plans to gag the media or shut down the internet. President Ruto, speaking from State of Nairobi, said that Kenya has already passed the point where the media can't be turned off.
Take it from me, Kenya has come a long way. The era of switching off, I don't know, this or that's way behind us. I have said we will support the right of the media to carry out its function. You have our absolute support, irrespective of how biased you are against us. We will support you.
At the same time, the president stated that the media has put him in a difficult position, but there are no plans for a media blackout.
In the context of the violent demonstrations, you agree that there has been a lot of violence against citizens, many citizens, properties, burning down of buildings, including churches. In that confusion, there could have been incidences where the media was caught in the fray. I do not think there is any deliberate attack on the media. And if there was such deliberate attack on the media, I can tell you we would be opposed to it and we would not support it and we would actually deal with it.
This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Oseto. Good morning.
At a few minutes after 7 o'clock, we're looking at traffic built up on Jogo Road. It's getting out towards Landis. That's heavy. And then we'll see some traffic then spilling over at Kamkunji onto Haile Selassie, and there's also Ngong Road traffic that's coming in from there. Thika Superhighway is what we're looking at. It's bumper to bumper for some kilometers. Very, very busy as you're coming in through towards the Pangani underpass. It's going to be bumper to bumper for some time. We're also looking at it heavy coming in on Outer Ring. Outer Ring in that direction, also coming in from Mombasa Road. That's going to be very busy for some time as well. The Eastern Bypass, pretty busy as well. Bumper to bumper right around that Utawala Junction. As you join Kangunda Road, also you'll find some traffic coming into the CBD. Mombasa Road is not looking too bad until you get to the roundabout at Nyayo Stadium, and it'll slow down quite some. Magadi Road leading out towards Langata Road, some movement there as well. The rain is still coming down, so the roads are slippery. Be careful, folks. Let's have a peaceful Monday morning, shall we? Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Let's keep things moving this morning.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is the Situation Room.
Welcome
the
to
only
Kenya's
way to
biggest
start your
conversation. This is a Situation Room. If you're just joining us on KTN Home, or you're tuning into SpiceFM this morning, or on YouTube and Facebook, this is the second hour of the show. We're here every weekday morning from 6 a.m. to 10 a.m., Monday to Friday. And we have all these interesting conversations. We're going to have one just now, looking into the 8 years since the Garissa University College attack. Now, from today until the 5th will be what? Today is the 3rd. The 4th is tomorrow. The 5th is on Wednesday. Between today and Wednesday, the judiciary is holding what we discussed last week, the 3rd Regional Symposium on Greening Judiciaries in Africa. And it will be opened by President Dr. William Ruto today, and we'll have at least 20 chief justices from across Africa expected at the symposium to discuss matters of greening the judiciary. We had that conversation last week, and we were talking about what it means. So it's all judicial officers basically looking at how to understand matters of climate change, matters of global warming, and when cases of environment that touch on these are brought before them, how best do they handle? How best does the judiciary address these emerging concerns? And this is what they'll be discussing for these 3 days. You can watch this live on KTN and online from today to tomorrow up to Wednesday, when it'll conclude. So we are now joined by two people in the studio. One of them is Dr. Oscar Gedua. He is a psychologist. And the other one is Rosemary Chalo. Rosemary is a survivor of the Garissa University College attack 8 years ago. Good morning.
Morning.
Karibuni sana to Kenya's biggest conversation, and thank you for joining us.
Asante.
You well?
Yeah.
Very good.
Yes.
It's raining. Is it still raining out there? You know, it was raining at 3 a.m., 4 a.m. Still drizzling now?
Yes,
Yeah.
that's it. Yeah.
It's just one of those bad mornings. If you just think about people who are now trying to find their way to work, you are commuting, going to a flooded bus stop, getting onto a... It's just horrible. It's just a mess. But nonetheless, it's good that we have you in the studio.
Well, thank you for having us.
To welcome you, Bonasiti Muga has the day's proverb. This week we are in the other Congo.
Yes, we were in DRC the previous week, as in being in meaning, we were the poems, the proverbs that we talked about last week were from DRC, not the poems, proverbs. So this week we're just next door to it. Congo, otherwise known as Congo Brazzaville or Congo Brazzaville. Okay? Now, why Brazzaville? Because Brazzaville is not only the capital, but it's their biggest town, otherwise known as a city. Now, this country is interesting.
Just call it a city, but it's
a city is a town. It's a town. It's a big town. It's a very, very, very big town. Okay? This country has the Atlantic Ocean as one border. It has Gabon as a border. It has DRC as a border. It has Cameroon as a border. Man, it is bordered.
Does it have Angola?
Yes, it does. How did you know?
I'm just looking at that guy.
You look at the map. Well, that map is true. Anyway, in the early hour, I was mentioning that the name Congo, spelled with a K, is derived from a kingdom that existed along the Congo River. Now, this particular name existed because the people who inhabited this area were hunters, and Congo was related to that activity. But this was around 1480 something, 2, 3, 4 there, when the Portuguese first visited that particular area. But the name has now stayed and it has stuck. I usually talk about the president, and if they have a vice president, mention the name. But better still, we talk about the country, the president, and in this country they don't have a vice president. What they have is a deputy and a prime minister. Sorry, why am I calling this guy deputy? I'm all over the place this morning. The president is called Denis Sassou Nguesso. For those who don't know him. Then they have a prime minister. Now his name is a bit of a mouthful. Anatole Colinet Makosso. That's the prime minister of Congo. Now, the proverb.
The proverb.
If the needle doesn't pass, the thread won't follow.
If the needle doesn't pass,
the thread won't follow.
The thread won't follow.
No, it won't.
Daktari, what comes to mind when you hear this proverb?
Wow. First of all, thank you so much for having me in studio this morning. It's great to see you. That's very interesting. I don't know if I'm a political mind or not, but it sounds to me as if something to do with leadership, and that if leaders do not, in essence, lead the way, then people cannot follow. And I don't know if that's what it meant, but I'm just trying to, I'm not the literature.
That's your interpretation.
That's my interpretation. I mean, just right off the top of my head. Sounds as if somebody can't go through a difficult place as a leader, then they can't expect other people to do the same. I don't know, maybe I've completely butchered the meaning.
No, when it comes to proverbs, there is no right and wrong interpretation. No. But given that you're a psychologist, what it tells us that if we derive your thinking is that you are politically minded. Because of all the interpretations you could think of, you arrive at politics.
Rosemary, how about you?
Thank you for having us. It just seems that once you are a leader, you lead by example and people need to follow you. Once you can't demonstrate that the characteristics or the qualification of the leader, no one can follow you. Yeah.
If the needle
doesn't pass,
the thread
won't follow.
won't follow.
Perhaps to make this proverb clearer, think of a situation where the thread goes first. Will it really pass? It won't.
It won't.
Yes.
That's why you need a needle.
The needle goes first, then the thread follows.
Yeah. Rosemary, it's been 8 years since the Garissa University attack. Just take us back into those 8 years. What were you doing at Garissa University, and what do you recall of this particular day?
Thank you. I was a student in Garissa University. I was a first year there. Yeah, and it was just around 4 a.m. we started hearing that the explosions of the noise coming from the hostel where the second years were sleeping. So in that process, we could understand it was something which was wrong. We thought it was maybe the problem with the electricity. And that time I was the first year, the representative, so I had to go and to check what is happening around our hostel. I woke up in my bed, then I just told my roommate something is happening. Then they just woke up, they ran, said it is Al-Shabaab, but that it wasn't in my mind. I just went to check on the electricity where it was. Then within that, because we were used to one entrance between us and the gentlemen, I just saw about 3 people just coming in our hostel. Then they just went toward where the gentlemen, the hostel for gentlemen. Then they say they are Al-Shabaab, they are come to kill and to be killed, but that didn't hit my mind because they are just wearing like the KDF. To me, I thought they are KDF. And so after I had that, I went just back to our hostel. Then I just stood outside to see what is happening. Then within that, the process that we had, that the explosion of the guard, it exceeded. So we had to call some of the gents, and we tell them there is something which is not good. And once now we had our hostel was in the ground floor. Then there was a second floor where now the gentlemen, they can pass from the second floor and come in the ladies' hostel. Some of them, they come. Then we stayed actually around maybe 30 minutes just within the hostel, looking of what is happening. So once we had that the gunshot and that the exploitation of the noise had exceeded, we decided to use the Panya route to the field where it was. Once we just go into the fields, we just see them now, they started shooting us. So we could learn. If we see them, they are just shooting, we could lay down. Then we walk up, we run again. When they shoot us, we just lay down. Then we lay down, then we wake up, then we just walk. Then we arrive at the field where we stayed for 1 hour. Then they started even following us when we were in the field. Then we had to think the other ways. We need to get out of the field. Then that time our school was fenced by electricity wire. The lack of it, the electricity wasn't there, so it just was the wire. Those who were in the position now to jump to the outside of the school, they get that. But for me, I was not in that position because like when we were going out, you found our clothes was teared out, so I could jump in. The gentlemen that we had them, they assisted us in digging the hole. Then we passed through that to a neighbor. There we found some of the Muslim. In that morning they said, this is Garissa. Then they said, the road is going to Buramasalani. This is going to the town. This is going to Buramzuri. So wondering where now are we supposed to go. In the process, we are wondering where we can to go. One of the neighbor just called us and said, you can just come, you stay here for the moments. Once the things they are settled, you will go back to your school.
How many were you that were able to escape?
We were
at this point?
around 20 people, yeah, within the group I was in.
What happened? So you were in a hostel, of course, with very many more. Why is it that only 20 managed to escape? Is it that the others did not react fast? Is it that they were not aware of what was happening? What do you think happened?
Like my roommates, they just woke up and running. They didn't wait for anything, so they just woke up running, shouting Al-Shabaab. Yeah, some when they saw that, they just woke up and running. So with that, our team which we left behind to see what was happening. Yeah.
Did you know what was going on by the time you were in the field and there was all this shooting going on and you were running? Did you then have an idea of what was happening at that point?
No, I couldn't have, because I just had, like one of our readers said, there is something happening and it is not Al-Shabaab. They are thieves. They have come into our school. So we thought they are thieves and we were just waiting them to cool down, then we can go back to school. Yeah.
Okay.
When you heard the first burst of gunfire, you said you woke up, you were a leader in that hostel, and you wanted to go and just determine what was happening.
Yeah.
What did you actually see?
I see just 3 gentlemen just coming in wearing a KDF uniform. To me, because within the school we are used to stay with KDF, I could trace they are Shabab. I believe they are KDF. Even after I had them saying they are Shabab, they are come to kill and to be killed, I didn't believe they are Shabab.
So the KDF camp was not far from the college?
Yeah, it was not far, and within the school we had some of the KDF. We used to interact with them. They used to stay just around the school.
So were they students or were they providing some form of protection to the school?
They were providing protection to the school.
How many were they in total?
Sometimes during the day you can find there are 2 or 1.
Okay. Now, did you, for instance, the hostel you were in, how many students were there in your hostel?
We are around, let's say 300.
Oh, around 300.
Yeah.
And how many hostels were there?
2.
There were 2 hostels?
Yeah.
The boys and the girls?
Yeah, the boys and the girls. Then we had the hostel, that was for the first years.
For the
hostel,
first years,
yeah.
yes. And that had 300?
Yeah.
And so boys, girls. So for every year, the hostels were divided according to the years that people were in.
Yeah, it was only the first years and second years.
Okay.
Yeah.
I see. Now, when you left the compound and you were given shelter, at what point did you eventually go back to the university?
We didn't go back.
Yes.
We stayed at the neighbor's place until around 7 a.m. where the chief came in and just said our school has been attacked by Al-Shabaab. Then we were taken to the KDF camp at Garissa.
How far away was that camp from your college, from your university?
It wasn't such far because sometimes we could walk to the town. So it was just, let's say, maybe 5 kilometers. Yeah.
At the end of this, of course, now you were hearing what has happened back in your college. Many were killed. Reports of 148 were killed. There were all these conflicting reports of what has happened. But by the end of this day, you now came to realize what exactly has happened to your college. That there was an attack. There's a terrorist attack. The people that you saw were actually there, fully intent on killing people. And then hearing that some of the people that you knew have been killed. How did that affect you?
That affected me, psychological and social support. When it's come like one was my friend, and before the attack that night, we had spent our time. Actually, we argued. She could not go to sleep in the second years. If it was possible, we could add sleep with her in our dormitory, but she refused. And after, when we were at the KDF camp, now we started asking, where is so and so? And others, they said, maybe let's wait until evening, we could get a report about her. But when it reached around it was around lunchtime. So one of our friends told us she couldn't make to come and she's no more. So that it was a hard time to believe she's no more. And the way we interacted, because that night we are just doing like our assignment, so that affected my life. Yeah.
Okay.
No, that's where the doctor comes in. There were very many, 700 students held hostage, hearing just gunshots, seeing others being killed. Those that were shot and survived, or those that were injured, they had to go through something to come out of it. What was it? What is it that person goes through?
First of all, Eric, I think that Garissa University College attack needs to be put in the history of this country as one of the saddest events that actually details what radical elements who practice nefarious ideology can do to this country. I was involved in that rescue mission from the word go. I've always been. I'm a forensic psychologist. I think you introduced me as a psychologist. I am a psychologist, but I'm a forensic psychologist, and that's important because the work that I do actually circles around what do you do in event where evil or crime has actually affected people, and how do you help them to recover from that. Now, at that time, the Kenyan government tried to act immediately, and even for those of us in the practice, we tried to act immediately. And I'm coming back to your answer so you can understand where this ties in. So we did a recovery effort, and I think what the government tried to do through the Ministry of Interior, the National Disaster Operations Center at the time, we didn't have so much experience just because Westgate had happened in 2013 September, and the response, as you know, had a lot of issues in it. So 2015 was a bit too soon and too far because Garissa University College was not in the center of Nairobi. So we couldn't have the same kind of speed of the special units at that time. Now, I'm a civilian, but I can tell you that probably more could have been done. But then we received the students, I remember that night, and Rosemary was one of them. I remember when we worked together, in fact, we were just talking about it this morning, that they came to Nairobi on a cold, rainy night. I remember that day very well, that second. And the Ministry of Interior was involved, the Ministry of Devolution was involved in bringing them back. But here's our problem. Our problem is that we do not understand terrorism and violent extremism well. Because it's not just about the violence, actually. It's about the terror part of it. And the terror part of it is where the psychological impact of terrorism comes in. The idea that terrorists want you to change your way of life. They want you to be so scared about doing anything that you actually do not end up living your life the normal way. So for Rosemary and her friends, they experienced what I call the most extreme form of human suffering, especially when you witness it happening to your friends. She talked about her friend. And so what happens to them is that, you of course you become scared for your life. And that's the one thing. A lot of them went through what is called post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD, and being severely traumatized, psychologically traumatized. So nightmares, flashbacks of what has happened. And in fact, I just wanted to say right before when you're asking her what happened, the reason I didn't jump in and say, please don't ask her that, is because I know that Rosemary has gone through psychological support, and she also has. It's been 8 years, and we talked about it. If I thought she hadn't, I would have said, "Excuse me, can I interject?" Because one of the things that you do not want to do when somebody is traumatized is to have them recount the story.
It's a trigger.
It actually takes them back to the situation. The human brain does not distinguish between when you're actually going through the issue or when you're reliving it. You actually go through the same physiological and neurological experiences. So for them, there's avoidance, there's a re-experiencing of issues, there's a severe anxiety, there's a lack of sleep for some people, there's the addition of sleep for other people, and there's an extreme fear at loud noises. I remember 1998, I think everybody here is old enough to remember that the attack, the bomb blast at Nairobi. And what happened to Kenyans generally after after that. If you had a car backfiring, for instance, Kenyans would get scared and say, we're being attacked, we're under attack. And these attacks are really horrible, Eric, because not only does it affect the students who are in the middle of the attack and who went through it, but anybody who got the reporting in a candid way. Yeah. So our experience from Westgate probably is where we saw large-scale effect of media on enhancing trauma from attacks. And because you have the reporters in front of the mall. I'm standing here in front of the mall. There's an attack going on. I think journalists sometimes, but we've done a lot of work with the Media Council, where we've spoken to people and journalists, and I think the work you do is very, very great in bringing news to people. But sometimes that work leaves journalists themselves injured psychologically. But then also the people who they bring the news to. Because someone who didn't know what was happening at Westgate or at Garissa in their house and hadn't seen the images did not know what the context might have been. And by them seeing the images especially, and we can report without actually traumatizing people. We can tell them something has happened, the attack has happened. But the moment you show a dead body or you show somebody
suffering, the injured,
the human spirit, we're not created to actually take that in. But I know the way the news is. If it bleeds, it leads. But unfortunately for me as a psychologist, I look at it and I say, okay, fine, I understand the freedom of the media and all that. But then there's also that cost we have to think about. So if Rosemary and her colleagues who survived that very heinous attack did not go through some psychological support, which I proudly was part of delivering to them, then I believe that right now their lives would probably be completely in disarray. And I'm not saying that all her colleagues are as well put together as she is right now, but I'm saying that for majority of the ones who went through it, I'm sure with the correct support, they did well. I really want to shout out the DAAD, the German Academic Exchange Service, because they're the ones who saw it fit to actually give a scholarship to Rosemary and her colleagues at Moy University, where they relocated to. And that's where we actually went and met them to do the psychological support.
To start supporting them. Let's take a break, and then we come back. We continue looking into now the 8 years after, right?
Yes.
And what happens, the journey through recovery.
Yes.
What it takes and what it means. It's 28 minutes to 8. We have two guests with us in the studio. Dr. Oscar Gedua is a forensic psychologist, and Rosemary Chalo is a survivor of the Garissa University college attack in 2015. It happened on the morning of the 2nd and to the 3rd of April 2015. Looking at it now, 8 years on, what is it? What are the lessons that we learn in terms of coping with trauma? We call this, Dr. Harry, the Minute Maid break.
Yes.
And Ndu will tell you why.
Right. So, you know this. Sometimes you need a minute to declutter, isn't it?
Totally.
Absolutely. So what Minute Maid says is, you know what? Through the range of fantastic flavors that Minute Maid has on offer, through the day, you need to take a moment where you just breathe. And you can do that with this great refreshment from Minute Maid. It's called an moment. It's a Minute Maid moment, and you can have that through the day. Wake up, through the minute, through the day, and at the end of the day, even while you can go through all the great flavors, apple, orange, mango, and tropical, and have a Minute Maid moment and de-stress.
27 minutes to 8. How are the roads looking like? Let's find out.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
It's cloudy at 16 in Nairobi, and we'll see highs of 24. We'll see highs of 25 in a partly sunny Nakuru, and it's 16 and mostly cloudy in Nyeri, highs of 25. 24 will be the high in a sunny Eldoret at 14. It's mostly sunny at 27 in Mombasa and 28 in Malindi. 19 and cloudy conditions in Kisumu. We'll see 16 and partly sunny conditions in Kakamega. At 20, Kampala is cloudy and 26 cloudy in Dar es Salaam. 14 and mostly cloudy in Johannesburg and 27 and cloudy in Lagos. We'll see highs of 33 in Kinshasa, where it's currently clear at 23. All right, we're getting into traffic hour, and we're looking at traffic having built up coming on Gong Road at the junction with Karen. You get onto Gong Road proper, and there's some traffic as you then try to approach the junction, and then Riara Road in through from Naivasha Road as well. Traffic is spilling over through towards James Gishuru. All right, that's not too bad. Where it is crazy this morning is on the Thika Superhighway. We have traffic coming in from Kiambu County at that junction, then from County 1 to County 2, Committee Road at that junction coming in from PCA, heavy traffic. The Northern Bypass taking off some of that traffic, getting onto Kiambu Road, that still continues. Coming in from United Nations Avenue, quite some as well. It's busy there. It's busy on Juja Road and Manyanja Road, as well as Kangunda Road, heading in from North Airport Road towards Outer Ring and touching a little bit on the Eastern Bypass. We're in traffic hour this morning, and it's looking a little bit crazy. It's a bit slippery because of the rains overnight and likely to continue with a bit of a drizzle through the day. So please be careful as much as you can. Shout out what's going on where you are. If you are stuck, let us know. If you find a good route, let us know that as well. And we'll share on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Minutes to 8, the conversation continues with Rosemary Chalo and Dr. Oscar Gidua, looking 8 years on after Garissa University College terror attack.
So, I mean, it's interesting, even as we built having this conversation and talking about triggers, some of the things that we thought to be truth for the longest time about how we deal with trauma later on, and just some of the things that you're saying. I mean, I remember being at Westgate. I've never gone back to Westgate.
True.
I cannot go back to Westgate just because of that whole thing. And then I remember once after that, I was in a supermarket and I was doing shopping in another complex. The lights went out. I left the trolley the way it was and I left because I relived and I said, I'm not going to do this again, no matter what it is. I didn't find out, didn't ask. Could have just been power, didn't ask. So the thing is now, 8 years after that, for you, Rosemary, how are you, I guess, number one? And then how have you then been able to cope beyond the trauma, go back to school, continue with your life? How has that experience been for you?
I can say when it's come to the healing is a process. Yeah, and if it was not for the help from our Dr. Oscar and other counseling, we could be where I am today actually. It was a wrong experience. And to me, like, even when I was in the house, I could, like, maybe my siblings, once they knock the door, I could tense. Maybe they are coming into me. But through that, the process of psychosocial support, counseling sessions, I was unable to heal. And, like, for where I'm working now, I go to Garissa, actually, I go to Samburu, I go for those areas where there is a lot of insecurity. And I'm ill for now, but it is a journey.
I'm sure.
It is a journey. It can maybe, it depends also with the individual. There are some who they can take the longer period, and others they can take the short period. Yeah.
What does it mean if you don't go through the psychosocial support, if you do not, I don't know, de-stress. What happens? What are we looking at then in society where we have people who've gone through a traumatic experience like this and many others and then have not gone through the process of working it out?
Yeah. Okay, so fortunately, as human beings, we're pretty resilient in our own makeup, how we're created. And so if I can give you an illustration, if 100 people went through a severely traumatizing event, everybody's life will be changed, no doubt, I mean, from that day. However, in about 4 weeks, 85 people will actually go back to a semblance of normal life. They're probably going to, sleep better. They're going to avoid those places less. They're going to do all that stuff. But it's going to be 15 people. So that's about 15% of people whose lives are going to be completely messed up. Now, in the event that you do not get any support, psychosocial support, that can actually be a lifelong disability. It actually will be Ndu not going to Westgate, which, by the way, we're in the same group. I actually went to Westgate once just because I had a friend come from abroad and they insisted that they were at Westgate. But then they didn't know I was involved in the recovery. They didn't know that I was already traumatized, so to speak, from it. So I had to enter it. And I remember going in there and I didn't even listen to them. Yeah. I was not listening to them.
You were constantly
I was on edge the whole time. But let me mention something, because I think it's important that Kenyans, even as we're listening to the idea of how do you recover from traumatic situations, and especially from the effects of a terror attack, that until 2015, I don't think the country had, when I say the country, I mean the system, the state had not really realized the role of what psychological support would have. However, from 2016, the government, through the National Counterterrorism Center, came up with what is called the National Strategy for Countering Violent Extremism. And in one of those pillars of the strategy, there is the psychosocial pillar. And it's very important for Kenyans to know that. And that's why if you go to their website, counterterrorism.go.ke, you can actually find a hotline which you can actually call if you actually experience something like that, and you can get psychosocial support. That's very important. It was never in place back then. And you can see it's a year later. So what I'm happy about is that I've seen an incremental increase in realizing that, that you need to get psychosocial support. And culturally anyway, I don't need to belabor the point that in Kenya we never used to think counseling or psychology was important. I mean, really. For guys, have a beer, you're good. The girls are like, but you're alive, you're fine.
Yeah.
But then you're the walking dead. That's what I call people who are walking around with psychological wounds that have not been taken care of. So for the 15 people who I talked about, if those 15 people do not go through any psychosocial support, we're looking at an increase in disability in ways that you can't actually understand. So you see an increase in alcoholism at work. You start seeing the newspaper headlines. You're seeing people taking their lives via suicide. All that. Those are all
it's trauma.
It's trauma and complex trauma at that, because as Kenyans, we seem to go through traumatic things every day, but we never get any support for it. Let's start from colonization. Then you come out of that. You have freedom now. You think you're healed. You're not. You saw your parents being raped. You saw your people being castrated. You saw people being killed. You've never dealt with it as a country. We're the biggest land grabbers in the world. I always, when I've talked to people, there's no other part on earth you can go and tell people and boast to people about how many plots you have. Nowhere on earth. I can't go to New York today and tell, I have a plot in Kamulu, a plot in... Everyone's going, what are you talking about? But if you really think about it, if you think about the trauma of having your land taken away from you, it's like we're spending the rest of our time trying to claim it back. At a very psychological and deep level. Kenyans won't get that. Maybe this will be played in 50 years, they'll get what I just said. But that's what we're saying, that trauma has an effect that does not look like what we think it will look like.
And it then goes beyond generations.
It's multi-generational. Eric, our online behavior as Kenyans, we're the most rabid people online. Try to joke with a Kenyan online and see what happens. They will tear you apart. And I want to say is that we have all these pent-up issues in us, which start showing us anger. They start looking at dark humor. We think we're funny, but if you really think about it from a critical aspect, we make fun of sad situations. And that's, it's a way of coping.
That's our coping mechanism.
It's our coping mechanism, because we're so traumatized as a people. You hear all these things that are happening, the economy, the political situation, all those things. Kenyans feel helpless. And that's another sign of psychological, when you're so traumatized, you actually start feeling helpless. So we have this learned helplessness as a society where we think, okay, another scandal, so what?
Wow.
So on this, because then we already have a premise, we already have a foundation
Yes.
of trauma that we're dealing with.
Absolutely.
Then you add on to something.
Perfect. You implode. And that's why and you'll always hear people say, oh, he used to be fine. This person was perfectly okay. They used to come to work okay. He has a family. He has 3 children. How could he do this? You just said it. The foundation was there. All that was needed was that last straw to break the camel's back. And unfortunately for us, even the way we've designed our society, it doesn't really lend us for social support. We think we're a social and communal society as Africans. Huh?
Yeah.
But I think we're holding on to dreams of our fathers. We're not. We actually are not as communal as we used to be. If you really challenge Kenyans who live in gated communities and in estates, how many of us know our neighbors and take care of our neighbors? Or if you see a kid doing something on the road, you can call them out. We're really not as communal as we think we are. We want to be. We believe we were. But I know it might be controversial to say, but I don't think we are. And that's what we need to now get back to.
We lost it.
Yeah, because that could actually help ring fence and increase that resilience. The idea that if we watch out for each other, even if an enemy or anything happens to us, as a society, we actually tend to actually get better and get out of it a bit better.
What does a forensic psychologist do?
Apart from
let me ask. No.
I know.
Well, the training.
Yes.
What exactly does it lean you towards? Okay. What is this thing that makes you what we refer to as a forensic psychologist?
Well, it's where psychology intersects with the criminal justice system. That's at the basic level. So all areas of the system, starting all the way from law enforcement, all the security apparatus, then going to detention, or what we call remand in Kenya, then the court system, then corrections. So if you look at the whole intersection and interplay of psychological processes in all of that, starting from the criminals and criminal minds and all that, all the way through, that's what we do, that's what we deal with.
So if you look at that and you go through the process of what brings about terrorism, what we like to refer to as radicalism, would you then say that perhaps people who are radicalized are also traumatized?
They actually, yes and no. But yes, especially for the ones who end up being activated. So for instance, if a young person in the community gets radicalized, which happens a lot, and we know what causes them to be radicalized, it's not being told that you're going to get 5 billion shillings at the end of the day. It's actually love and support and somebody wanting to be like an older brother to you, and they come close to you. So what happens is they sell to you this idea of a utopian society. And they tell you that you can be part of that society and you're a valued member of that society. And once you join this society, for example, if you travel and go to another land where you're supposed to join this, let's say a caliphate or whatever it is, then when you land there, you realize that this is a bunch of criminals. And there's nothing like what they sold you. They're raping women, they're killing people for no reason, and they're putting you on the front line to go die, and they're not doing it themselves. And yet they're selling that as the ultimate price. So you end up being traumatized by that, and you go through what is called moral injury, because you thought you're going to actually do this cause, but then you get there and you find it's a completely different idea. So you get traumatized. And I also want to speak to the idea of the families of people who are radicalized. They get really traumatized. And I think when I was here in January, we were at we're right there in your sister station, and I remember we were talking about the effects of the 15th of January, the 14 Riverside attack, and the family members of some of the people. There are people now we work with and we see, and the trauma, stigma associated with them and all that is something you cannot even calculate. You cannot actually measure, because they really had no idea. If you really think about your normal family member, then your son or your daughter gets radicalized, your brother, your sister, it really changes your life, because you live with that stain the rest of your life. People will say there's no, you didn't know, you probably even helped them, and really you're benefiting financially. How
could you not see the signs?
How could you not? And yet nobody is trained to see those signs systemically. And that's the next phase now, where we say, can we train society to understand when somebody is changing and is becoming radicalized, because our trauma is there, yes.
I mean, PTSD, one relates to it when one watches movies and one thinks of people who have been in war.
Yes.
More so American movies that deal with the Iraqi war, the Afghanistan war, and so forth. But if we bring it back home and we look at our police service,
Perfect.
the way they go about their business, the way they are equipped to go about their business, or the lack or the absence of the equipment and the preparation they need to go about their business, and then the work that they're supposed to do and the work that they actually do. Does it not then fit this categorization that you've spoken of? And would one then not say that we have an entire group of people in this country who are constantly being traumatized?
I don't know, Bonamuga, if you know how profound what you've said is. We work with them and we've seen it. And I want you to imagine who a police officer or who a security officer in this country is. An 18-year-old lady or gentleman or, 20-year-old who's been deployed to serve this country and to probably even lay their life for this country. But then when they go to work, there's a lot of challenges with the work. Of course, it is the work, but no human being is trained to die and trained to, and you're not trained to see some of the things to suffer. And so there are many of them in the forefronts, and I know if they're listening to it, they'll be so happy that I'm speaking on their behalf. When I say that they do a lot of good work, but yet there's a lot of support they require that a lot of times they don't have. I'm sure even Rosemary, in interacting with some of the officers she interacted with, she saw, and yet they're even a bit better because they're KDF. But if now you're talking about the police officers and stuff, they're absolutely unshielded. They're out there doing work for this country. They're not sleeping, so we can actually have safety. But then the things they see on a day-to-day basis, they actually are the walking dead. I'm going to say that again in the sense of psychological trauma. However, I also want to commend the National Police for the things that they've put in place since about 2017, 2018, that have actually started, they have now a police hospital, I think, which they're going to be commissioning. They've also started the Directorate of Wellness, and the director is someone I know personally. I know they have a lot of counselors and psychologists who they're hiring now into the rank and file. They're also using the NPSC are actually using civilian psychologists to also help the police. So there's a few things and strides that are being made, but still there's a long way to go. And if I'm speaking about police, I also have to speak about prisons also, because they also get deployed in very difficult deployments, which Kenyans have no idea about. And that's why I was so happy when I saw Chief Justice Maraga being given a task force to actually look into their welfare. I hope that welfare and their recommendations will actually be put in place, because as a country, the idea of, you hear it everywhere, we write good documents, nobody implements them. But I hope that this is one that can be implemented, because the safety and security of this country relies on the wellness of our officers.
Kari, from a psychological perspective, as you're talking, I'm thinking about certain processes that we as Kenyans are known for. Task forces, committees, we form them very well. It's like we know, we understand, we need to look into this thing, and we do. Information gathered. Some even go to the point where they're analyzed, shelved. This we see consistently. Every time you talk of something, I can't even tell you, but that one, we even know what we need to do.
Yes.
Okay? How do we explain? Because this trauma we speak of, it isn't as though task forces upon task forces haven't talked about the wellness of the police service. They have. Correct. It isn't as though they haven't talked about reforming the prison services. They have. And yet, even with all the reports we have and with successive governments, and then with successive political leadership, what is this thing that we keep inheriting in the political leadership and in our own personality as Kenyans that ensures we take the step of sorting out a problem, but we never sort it out? And it replicates. So it means we have a powder cake that we keep adding powder to, and somewhere along the line, I think at the back of my mind, we even know what will happen, but it still doesn't stop us. How do you explain a situation where you have an entire generation upon generation of people who see the abyss, they know they're heading towards it, and they keep accelerating towards it?
That's a hard one, and I think it's a systemic question. However, I also want to give examples of where it has actually worked. I was fortunate to be in the National Task Force for Mental Health that was appointed in 2019, and we did our work, collected views from Kenyans about what Kenyans require in terms of mental health and their wellness. And we came up with a report that was actually published, and it was launched in the middle of COVID. And what I want to say is that from that report, one of our key things we said when we were appointed, we said, like I said, I do not want to ever be appointed to anything in government which won't bear fruit. If the intention is to just have it as people who are just being seen there and then not actually help and serve Kenyans. So it was one of our demands from the word go. So what has happened is that from the recommendations of that task force, a lot of actually the recommendations are being actualized. A lot of the laws right now, there's a push to repeal the penal code that actually criminalizes attempted suicide in the law. That is retrogressive in any way you look at it. So we want to see, is there a way to actually have that through a parliamentary process to get it out, because it has to be repealed. You also have to think about, there's a law on counselors and psychologists that was actually effected 2014, had never been actualized, was actualized finally last year as one of our recommendations. The Mental Health Board was also formed, the Mental Health Act that actually came into being 2022, I believe. So for me, there's a lot of steps, but the one lesson I've learned is that government can move very slowly because it's a behemoth that's huge. However, it is time for us as Kenyans to start doing it. And I agree with you. It seems like a learned helplessness. It's like we do these really nice things academically, but then people don't follow up with action. And that is the problem. I think our learned helplessness, we are numb to our situation and our situation. Here we can speak all the good English we want and analyze things to a T, but the normal Kenyan outside there says, wale ni watu wa masuti. The guys...
It's puzzling. The things we talk about and recommend can be done.
Yes.
What hamstring? I mean, they can be done.
And
it's
what do you think it is, City? Is it a psychological issue? Is that why you're
I'll pontificate on psychological issues when there's no psychologist.
No.
When there's a psychologist.
You will leave it at that. As we conclude, let's get back into the Garissa University. And Rosemary, so you went through the help of psychologists such as Daktari. But then, I can imagine you plus your colleagues who are fellow students, some lecturers, how about your family members? Because I can imagine what they went through as they're hearing, okay, there's an attack at Garissa University. They have no clue where you are. Did they get that support?
No. Yeah, the family was not. Yeah, they should.
Can I support her? Why? And then she'll get back to it. Rosemary, sorry to cut you short, but it's important. When somebody has gone through extreme trauma, they change. And family members need to understand that. That's the reason why. In fact, how I was involved in the support for Rosemary and her schoolmates was because I happened to meet the director for DAD in the country at a conference. And then he came very proudly and he told me, as the Germans, we're going to give the students a scholarship for 1 year, and it's going to really help them. And I listened to him and I looked at him and I said, Doc, that's really great. First of all, I'm embarrassed that it's not the Kenyan government giving that scholarship.
Yeah.
That's the first thing. But second of all, have you considered that maybe you'll be sending zombies to class? He was completely floored. And then that's how I got in, because I said, psychologically, you've got to really help them in. And that's why it's important. Rosemary and other people like her's families need to be informed. What do you expect from her? How can you support her? Don't spend time around her. And I'm sure she got so many people asking, Nini, what happened?
Keeps asking those questions.
Yeah, you need to really stop all that and just be there for her as a person.
Okay. Yeah. I think it's important then that for us to understand that it's a journey. And it's not just, 2 years later, so you're okay. You moved on. You moved from Garissa, you went to Moi. So,
no.
It's a continuous journey. But thank you very much, guys, for joining us today. Rosemary Chalo is a survivor of the Garissa University college attack 8 years ago. Dr. Oscar Gedua is a forensic psychologist. They've been here telling us that journey of healing and what it means. Keep it here for more conversations. Good morning, 8 a.m.
spice up your life.
The news at the top of the hour on Vibes Radio.
Good morning, this is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. The Kenya Media Sector Working Group has claimed to have received information about a scheme to shut down broadcast media and internet services in anticipation of anti-government protests. Kenya Editors Guild President Churchill Otieno noted that such a move will be ill-advised and a grievous assault to Kenya's democracy. He condemned the attacks meted against journalists covering the protest and warned against profiling of the media by some government officials. He called upon investigative agencies to launch a probe into the matter and apprehend the culprits.
We demand that the Director of Public Prosecutions and the Inspector General of the Police and the Independent Policing Oversight Authority to ensure accountability for all threats and violence against journalists through impartial, prompt, thorough, and independent and effective investigations. We call upon them to bring to book the perpetrators behind these attacks while ensuring access to effective remedies and compensation to the victims.
Political pundits and a section of ODM party members in Trans Nzoia County have welcomed the olive branch extended by President William Ruto to Azimio leader Raila Odinga, saying they look forward to the results of the process. Washington Gessa from Trans Nzoia County now says that this will help the nation get out of the worsening economic situation.
Nataka kusema heko kwa Daktari William Samoei Ruto kwa nafasi ambayo ametoa. Mwanaume kamili ni huyo sasa, ambao unawacha ambayo imefanyika kwako hapa na unapiga hatua kufikia mwenzako. Heko kwa Raila Amolo Odinga na timu yake Kalonzo Musyoka, Eugene Wamalwa, Martha Karua, Oparanya, nita watu wote pamoja kukuja pamoja kususpend 1 week kugive ambaye kwa jambo rahisi. Hata wakipinga watangola wako na wakina Musalia kama Raila Amolo Odinga amekubali kususpend maandamano na protest ambayo imekuwa hata penye wako hao pia umetulia. Kwa maana waliona kila ambacho lifanyika 2007, 2013, 2017 kama kuna mazungumzo nchi inakuwa na amani. Watu wanataka amani.
Political analyst Steve Bonuke says that he is happy with President William Ruto's decision to give room to dialogue when it comes to appointments in IEBC.
Sheria mbaya ni mbaya. There is no way one side can choose a referee mwenye ata preside over an election that concerns all Kenyans. Bunge ikae iweze kuweka sheria nzuri, all stakeholders waletwe on board na tuweze kuchagua commission yenye inaonyesha sura ya Kenya. Shida hii nchi hii ya kisiasa, IEBC has never earned the trust of Kenyans. Every election cycle we have people who will always doubt IEBC. Hao watu wamekataa kufungua server. Tunataka watu wakichaguliwa kwenda kwa IEBC wakuwe beyond reproach like Caesar's wife, so that when they say candidate A has won over candidate C, we agree and we move on as a country.
And ICT Cabinet Secretary Eliud Owalo has urged the people of Nyanza not to pay attention to calls for demonstrations by Azimio One Kenya coalition leader Raila Odinga. Speaking in Migori during a food distribution exercise at Nyarongai area in Suna East constituency, CS Owalo said President William Ruto has promising intentions with the people of Nyanza, as he has already appointed various leaders from the region with intentions of economically developing the area. The ICT boss said that the Kenya Kwanza regime, as by its manifesto, with the leadership of President William Ruto, is ready to work with all Kenyans across the country despite the minimal political support he received. He noted that various counties had already begun receiving seeds and fertilizers. In addition, Owalo rubbished the idea of political demonstrations, saying the time for elections had lapsed and that the demonstrations would keep investors away, destroy businesses, and risk the future and life of the youth. And police have arrested 5 suspects alleged to have razed down UDA's office in Siaya during last week's demonstrations. The suspects were arrested following intelligence leads and exhibits including iron sheets and window grills recovered. The gang of around 1,000 people had engaged police officers in running battles before barricading the road leading to the Siaya UDA office and set it on fire after vandalizing it. The 2 police vehicles are also damaged during the incident. The suspects will be arraigned in court today. And there's County Assemblies Forum has petitioned the government to give armed security officers to all the 4,200 members of county assemblies following the killing of Kisa East MCA Stephen Maloba. According to Kakamega Deputy Governor Ayub Savula, the MCA was stabbed to death following a confrontation between his camp and that of Khoisero MP Christopher Aseka. Kakamega Senator Boni Khalwale has since condemned the incident, saying killing of the MCA was due to political indifferences. CAF Chairperson Philemon Slubey said the MCAs are operating in a politically charged environment that is exposing them to imminent danger. This is Newswire. Dennis Asedo. Good morning.
Okay, what's this? This is Uhuru Highway, and we're looking at the junction from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout. That's Haile Selassie going up towards Anniversary Towers, University of Nairobi there. There's that inbound stretch, a very, very heavy traffic as you're going out towards Westlands or trying to get into the CBD. So the mishmash of traffic is happening in the CBD this morning. It's very heavy on Juja Road. In and outbound traffic is doing the thing. And we're looking at the thicker superhighway with quite some as well. It's coming in from Kiambu County hot this morning and not letting up maybe for the service lanes for a little while. Coming out of Westlands, also we're looking at in and outbound traffic, and we're also looking at the same happening coming in from Gitanga, Naivasha, coming into parts of Kawangware, Gitanga Road, that whole thing doing the thing. It's a few minutes after 8 o'clock and traffic is heavy this Monday morning. Where are you? Are you stuck somewhere? Let us know. SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Good morning and welcome to April. If you're just joining us, it's the third day, it's the first show of April this year. Kenya's biggest conversation, live on SpiceFM, KTN Home, live on YouTube, and live on Facebook, live everywhere. Join the conversation also just by tagging us on Twitter at SpiceFMKE, or you can follow conversations later. If you miss a conversation at any time or any day, you can still go back and catch up on it on YouTube. Just go and search for SpiceFMKE. And you will find all the videos posted there. You can watch the video, you can share, you can like, you can comment. Let us know what you think about every conversation. Join actually the conversations. Today is the third, and it's the beginning of the third regional symposium on greening judiciaries in Africa. More than 20 chief justices from across the continent and the judicial officers and people who are involved in the justice sector are converging in Nairobi, Kenya for a 3-day conference. The third regional symposium on greening judiciaries is going to be opened by President William Ruto today. Takes place until the 5th, that's on Wednesday, where the judiciaries in Africa are discussing how best to tackle issues of climate change and green conversations. When such matters are brought before them, how do they handle them? We had a conversation about this on our Justice Thursday's conversation last week, and this is what they'll be discussing. You can follow these conversations on KTN and also via live stream on social media. So go to KTN Home later on today. It'll be beamed live as the conversations begin. We have two guests who are joining us now, and we want to look at what we are seeing politically. So today was going to be the mother of all demonstrations, as had been built by the Azimio leadership. And then they decided, you know what, because the president has spoken and he has extended an olive branch, And he says, let's approach take a different approach. Raila Odinga and Martha Karua and the others addressed the Kenyans yesterday, and they said, let's call off those demonstrations, at least for a week, and see the beginning of what's going to happen next. To understand and to unpack this, the demonstrations, the call for demonstrations, the conversations that are happening in the country, we're now joined by two people. Dr. Fred Ogola is a governance and political analyst. He's also with the Linda Ugatuzi. Vugu Vugu la Linda Ugatuzi.
Yes.
Vugu Vugu.
Yes.
La Linda Ugatuzi. Championing devolution in the country and saying it's under threat and we need to do something about it. Gerard Bitok is a political analyst. Gentlemen, good morning.
Good morning to you. Good to see you.
Karibuni sana to the conversation. CT has the day's proverb. It's from Congo, Brazil. What's the name of that country? So we know the other one is the Democratic Republic of Congo.
This is Republic of Congo.
This is just the Republic of Congo.
Republic of Congo.
Democracy, wachana na hiyo.
Well, it began in the early days after the independence in 1960 as a Marxist country. That was the inclination. And then around 1979 or so, that changed. So Marxism, I think, went to the Atlantic Ocean. And some that didn't go there, of course, followed the Congo River into the Atlantic Ocean. So they're now just the Republic.
So there's just the Republic of Congo.
And remember, Siti Munga, that when you hear in Africa anything that if a country's name begins by democratic, it means there's no democracy. When any constitution or any institution name begin with independent, no, what they don't have mostly is independence.
Okay.
So it talks about what it doesn't have most.
Yes.
What you are being informed as being present is actually absent.
Yes.
Okay.
The proverb?
If the needle doesn't pass, the thread won't follow.
If the needle doesn't pass, the thread won't follow.
Yes.
Dr. Hari, what do you think of this?
You know, this one is a difficult one because what is the needle passing on, you know? Of course, you know that a needle is a little sharp and it can exert pressure. And you see a thread, it cannot exert pressure. So it means that you must create some pathway so that what does not have pressure, like a thread, because it can bend, can now enter. That's my thought.
Gerard?
Good morning. I think I was listening when I was on my way, and
so you have more Kenya from other.
I have more Kenya somehow. The two interesting things is that first of all, while growing up, we imagined actually that the name Congo originated from short people because we used to call short people Congolese. Someone in Fupi kama Mkongo. So I didn't know that there was another origin for that country's name. But coming back to the proverb, I think I agree with the gentleman who made a political interpretation of it, and it's about leadership. Like, you know, the thread is a weaker part of the whole scheme of knitting. And the needle is a bit stronger. So I could think about leadership. And I think that also played out yesterday, that the needles are making a pathway, and looks like the threads will not have a choice but to follow. The needle yesterday made a move, and the thread today might not be under mannering. So I think it's leadership. There's a part that those people in spaces that are in the places of leadership somehow make a pathway to have any other following multitude or structure as to bow to it. So I'd look at it politically and also in terms of leadership, that there needs to be a pathway that is created by a leader so that every other person can follow suit. When that does not happen, then many times we find that the thread does not find the pathway into the cloth. Yes.
So let's look back at the last couple of weeks. Okay, actually months, from all the way from January. The leadership of Azimio said they want to go to the people and engage with the people because of what is affecting the people. That their issues, their list has been changing. You know, every new day we keep talking about it here, so we are not sure what the issue is, but they've crystallized around some issues. One, electoral justice. We are the ones who call it electoral justice. They say three things. They want the IEBC selection panel. They to be involved in that reconstitution. They want the Cherera 4 reinstated. Basically, just muddying the waters on that end. Open the servers so that we see for sure whether you won the election. The whole conversation about this guy who was the whistleblower started in earnest and then it just faded away. So it's no longer about the whistleblower and 8 million votes. It's about just open the server. The other issues have been on the cost of living and saying you should reinstate or reintroduce a subsidy for unga and a subsidy on petroleum prices. Then there have been all these conversations about the constitution of government and accusing the Kenya Kwanza administration of constituting a government focusing more on 2 tribes, and then the other tribes are just getting, small tokens here and there. And that's been an issue. And that formed the basis for nationwide rallies into the 20th of March, which now started as weekly protests. Yesterday, the president said, I have listened to what Kenyans are saying. I have listened to the religious leaders. I have listened to others. And I say it's about time that we sit back and listen. And the issue that I'd like us to address is on the composition of the IEBC selection panel on the formation of the next IEBC. And for that reason, I'd like to extend an olive branch to Raila Odinga and ask him to consider a new approach, bipartisan approach through parliament, blah, blah, blah. Raila came and said, I have heard what the president has said. Well, he didn't call him president. I've heard what Mr. Ruto has said. And I take note of what Mr. Ruto has said. And yes, let us immediately embark on that journey of having a conversation. Both leaders were asked by the journalists present, what about the cost of living? It was not the main agenda for saying, let's have a conversation, let's halt the rallies. It appeared to have been the main agenda for calling the rallies. So what do you make of what the president and Right Honorable Raila Odinga said yesterday? Starting with you, Dr. Ari.
First of all, Eric, I'm sure we are here with you at some point when we are talking about the issue of strategy, and I told you that a good student in strategy must be good in history. So without understanding history, it's very difficult to be very strategic. That's why I talk about the issue of analysis before, situation analysis before you go do anything. Remember, Moi called this thing MOU. Kibaki called it Nusumkati. Uhuru called it handshake. Ruto has called it bipartisan. Now, and now I don't know which is the next one. We just with these words keep on going. Also remember some historical thing that happened. Everything happens, for example, before we did the handshake, President Uhuru Kenyatta was in Ethiopia. Raila was to be sworn in. And you remember, President Uhuru Kenyatta was not as strong as his deputy. You remember, Ruto never wanted this swearing in to take place. And he said it won't happen. Look at Gachagua again and Ruto. Ruto was away during this time when Mandamano were going fever pitch. Then you find again that Gachagua was saying it won't happen. We can't talk about any negotiation. The only negotiation will be how do you go home? So you see, every time the president is there, the deputy takes more hard lines than the head of state. So now this has happened whereby the thread again has been led by the needle. The needle says, okay, let's talk. When the thread was saying we can't talk. Now the thread has to follow. Thank you very much, Gerard, for that, in this direction. Now, let me put this to perspective. According to me, what I make of this, if I've told you that for 4 presidents, it has ended up into some kind of negotiation and different names by the same thing, why do we have to wait for property to be destroyed, lives to be lost, if we know that's the way? If you start quarreling with your wife, and you know by the end you are going to go out for dinner, don't even quarrel. Tell her, sweetheart, let's just go for dinner. Why do we have to fight is when you go for dinner? Why do we have to throw tear gas and do all those shenanigans and kill our economy? We lost 6 billion shillings a year, per day for the demonstrations. Remember, Kenyans were in a place whereby people from abroad want to book summer holidays, and Kenya was not a place to go because this money has gone to Tanzania and the rest. We've lost foreign direct investment. We've lost so much. Why did we have to lose this just to do what has always been done? Handshake, Nusumukati, or something like that.
It sounds like you're alluding to that they knew that there was going to be this conversation
yes, if
before.
You knew, yes.
and that all these things that happened, they kind of knew that they were going to happen. And so you're saying, why waste time fighting if we knew that we were going to come to the table
Yes, because
to agree?
even if they say
why would they know something like this and still allow these things to happen?
I did a press release as Operation Dogatuzi, and I told them, Mr. President, the buck stops with you. Don't ask me about Raila as alternative, because let me tell you what, my dear, the right answer begins the right question. Normally, people don't know this. And remember, when we were in primary school, secondary school, whenever exam was put on the table, there's always a moment when the teacher could come to correct the exam question. The bright students will raise their hand and say, question 4 is wrong. You have to change it so that you can get the right answer. But the stupid students will just say, why are you wasting time? So you realize if the question is not well formulated, the answer will be wrong. So I'm sure, of course, you see, by being a professor among the ones, Malimo question 6 is wrong. If you put it this way, the answer cannot be there. There is no correct answer. So the correct question was that Raila had got all options considered. The last resort, he could not win through parliament because parliament has been taken. There was a perception the judiciary was gone. Everything was gone. The only thing remaining was the street, and he went to the street. So the next question was, what were Ruto's alternatives, not Raila's alternative? If the alternatives were checked, and I made it very clear in some press statements, that Ruto rules State House because he has got legal license to rule State House. He was sworn in the legal way. Raila rules the street, which he calls social license. The street feeds State House. And when Raila cuts the pipe to State House, the economic pipe, State House has to come out and talk. And that's what's happening. That is an economic imperative. So if that is the case, they knew. And if anybody is brilliant in Kenya Kwanza government, they knew. If they don't know, then we have to question their intelligence. So they knew. So they took us the route which we knew where it's going to end. Raila told Ruto, if Moi came to handshake me, who are you? So how could they not know? And I'm sure the Kenya Kwanza people have enough brains to know this. If not, then that's the question. So for me, at the moment, I'm not even looking at the issue of bipartisan. The question is, Eric, do you believe that the parliament can be bipartisan? The answer is absolutely no. So I would like to suggest that let us take this thing out of parliament and let us involve more stakeholders, because if we just go through parliament, there will be politicians deciding our fate. All this time, I announced you Musumkate, MOU and the rest, everyone has gotten what they want, who are political power. But Kenyans using people's power never gotten a benefit.
We don't get anything.
So let's get this thing out of this political arrangement. And I'm calling upon you as media people even to make the voice stronger, that we'd like to have the 4 estates involved in this negotiation now.
Okay. We'll come back into what this thing is that we need to get out of parliament. But Gerard, your initial reaction and understanding of what happened yesterday?
I think first of all, there are a lot of telltale signs in the political scene. If you've been here long enough, then you'd understand. I think my first heartbreak was with Uhuru Kenyatta. That handshake that Uhuru Kenyatta made was my biggest heartbreak. And it really changed how I looked at politics and how much I tend to invest in political causes, in emotional political causes. And there's a bigger message, especially to Kenyans, in what happened yesterday, that you'll be involved in everything else except negotiations. Maandamano kuja, beba mawe, kuja tukule tiakas, fanya nene, but where negotiations is where they draw the line. When they go to speak about negotiations, that's when they leave you out. So I think there's a bigger message to Kenyans in the sense that political processes are not necessarily your processes. Go vote, that's your process. Go vote, go home, and start working. Move on with your life. If politicians have their own beef, then they need to fix their own beef in the spaces that they think they find it fit for themselves. So it's not just a message to myself, but a message to 50 million Kenyans that while the process of politics is ongoing, you need to understand that we are all Kenyans. And the only thing that we have control over is what you're going to eat in your house at the end of the day, how you're going to pay your school fees, how you're going to manage your life. But what happens at the top is not your business. These gentlemen will stand in the next of, down some stairs and they say, beef imeisha. They can decide even bei ya unga imeshuka. Like yesterday, there's a truce. Bei ya unga imeshuka bado. The issues that are being raised. Has the IEBC been fixed now? The cost of living, has it come down? Has the servers been opened? They have not been opened. But they are saying, well, we can have a conversation. Have we been involved? Have they come back to Pipeline? Have they gone back to Kibra? Have they gone back to Dagoretti and Kangware to come and to go and tell them how things have changed? They have not. So those decisions are going to be made at the top for the bottom. So the bigger message is that on the issues of IEBC, it is not a new problem. And also the person who is raising it is also not new. It has been very consistent. Remember the issues of Isakasan, there was Kivuitu, then there's Chebukati. I think politicians tell us a lot of things except how these processes are done. For instance, IEBC, nobody tells you that Chebukati was actually a member of ODM for 10 years. He actually ran for a seat and the ODM ticket. And for the longest time, a lot of trust was bestowed on him. And the IEBC as it is. When you look at the formulation of IEBC as it is, Raila Odinga is making a demand that Nyeri reform must be reinstated. So he has a problem with the process that is there in picking up commissioners by William Ruto and the Parliament.
So how did you feel about the events that took place yesterday, Gerald? I mean, I hear you saying a lot, but again, essentially another handshake has taken place. For me, personally, what did you feel about that?
I think personally I'll be very disappointed if Raila Odinga and William Ruto shook hands. I'll be extremely disappointed. That's number one. That is how I feel about it, because it means it speaks out of a lot of deceit. Because these guys, they have rallied us on both parts.
Okay.
Because William Ruto has spoken very strongly. You remember that he won the presidency on a story that Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta should not have shook hands. That the handshake government messed up the country, and that he has a better way to deal with Raila Odinga. So if you were telling us that you're giving us a prognosis and diagnosis of a situation that we thought that you're going to fix for us, and then again, with that diagnosis, you give us the same treatment, then we'll have a problem. So that's why I have a problem with William Ruto as a person who has supported him several times. I've voted for him, I've supported this government. But on the handshaking Raila is where I draw the line, because on what basis are we having this handshake? What exactly are we going to fix? Has it worked before? It hasn't. You remember 2017, Raila Odinga came out very strongly and said that the president, Uhuru Kenyatta, is not the president, doesn't recognize Uhuru Kenyatta as president. He swore himself in as the people's president. But then again, somehow, everything turned, including the IEBC. Some of the issues that I say the handshake was supposed to fix was IEBC. Now, almost 5 years later, we're still talking about IEBC. So if William Ruto is telling us that he's going to shake hands with Raila Odinga, on what principles? On what basis? How does it benefit me as a person? How does it benefit the people who voted for him? Because actually, a bigger majority of people who voted for William Ruto voted for him because they believed that he had a prescription for Raila Odinga and Uhuru Kenyatta. Now it seems that we're just about to walk the same path. I really have a very big problem with that. Unless if we're having an handshake, it has to make sense. Like what he has said before, that is only going to stick to the constitutional means of negotiating a way out of the issues that Raila has. He has talked about the issues that Raila has raised. He's talked about building up a bipartisan process to fix that. I think the law provides for how IEBC can be constituted. But I was having a conversation with my brother here before we walked in. There needs to be a better way of constituting IEBC other than the political process. Because we're having only two parties which are arguing over IEBC. Well, we have almost hundreds of political parties in this country. We have interested, even me, I'm an interested party. Why can I not be involved in selecting the IEBC panel? Because they decide over my vote. Why can't we have people from different sectors talk about the civil society, talk about the church, which are now playing a very huge role in negotiations. We cannot think about fixing IEBC as an afterthought. That only when you have a problem is when we start saying, Eric, kuja kidogo tuonge, Andu, kuja tuonge when you have a crisis. But the way it is as it is right now, IEBC remains to be a ping pong between two parties. Either person,
and nobody else.
When someone,
Dr. Ogola is saying, let's take this thing out to the people.
Yeah, let's take it out, because
what is this thing?
Look at this. Look at the commission as it is now in 2022, as it was. 4 commissioners have played allegiance to Raila Odinga. 4 commissioners out of 7. We have one who seems to have been lying in between. Then we have the other ones who have not really spoken very strongly on what was going on. But you can imagine the way the commission was selected then, when the handshake was there. Nobody had a problem. In fact, Junaid Mohammed stood on a podium and said that they have a lot of faith in Chebukati and IEBC as it is. Now, akasema ameziba shimo zote, there is nowhere William Ruto is going to escape this time. So faith was there a few months ago, less than 7 months ago. But now, they have a problem with that with that IEBC as it is. So there needs to be a better way. Take IEBC out of politics. Let other people decide on it, so that they become a referee that nobody owns. Because when you are talking about a presidential candidate who owns 4 commissioners,
Gerald, will the politicians allow this freedom that you and Professor Gola are talking about? Will they actually allow a situation where the participation is nullified and is non-existent, or it is insignificant.
What I was saying the other day is that you can't set an exam, then sit for the exam. In fact, one of the worst things that have taken place in governance, let me first of all disclose that I'm those who applied to be commissioners of IEBC, and I applied because I wanted to test whether these guys...
This recent one now?
Yes, I applied.
Okay.
I wanted to apply to test whether they can be independent process, because qualification is not my problem. I have more than qualifications. And then, of course, I wanted to know whether, can I be shortlisted?
Yeah.
I'm waiting. But as I was telling Gerard...
Did you get shortlisted?
I'm waiting because they were supposed to announce it, but after Raila's announcement, I think it has been...
for this. Okay.
Yeah,
okay,
it's no longer interested. That's why I can talk. I could have not talked at all. Because you see, what's happening is that, how do these guys get into office, the select panel, first of all? I can tell you these things are sometimes bought, if not most of the time bought. So why is the select panel has been appointed in a partisan manner, they will also execute in a partisan manner. The other thing, which is the biggest undoing for Raila Odinga, which he has to correct in this time round, when you bring your friends or people look like girlfriends to the people who are within your system to rule, who do not know anything, how comes Cherera was coming on the day the results being announced to know something was wrong? I mean, if you bring competent people to sit there on your behalf, you'll get competent outcome. In fact, look at the guys. Those guys, when they came on the last day to say things were wrong from the beginning.
So you're saying he should correct this, so that he should make sure that the person who sits there on his behalf this time is better.
Yeah, because I'm telling you, even yesterday when I heard him saying he wants the former commissioners to be reinstated, I was realizing he has not changed the game at all. He's not. He's not a game changer. Yes.
Professor Gola Oswago was Raila's person.
Yes.
The current minister for ICT was Raila's person. I'm talking about people who are in this IEBC setup, call it electoral commission, call it what you want. Now, so long as we remove Raila out of the equation and talk about the politician whom we know as Raila, and then look at other politicians and the influence that they want to wield within the IEBC and everything else that happens in our lives.
And interest as well. The independent interest.
Because IEBC right now is a sticking point because of the elections we've just come from. But it isn't just the IEBC. That's why I asked the question.
That's what I'm trying to tell you. What I want.
Yes.
If Raila wants to succeed, because before people have believed Raila knows the answer to the questions, but at the end we have gotten disappointments. Raila should have trust on the competence of the private sector. I was talking about the 4 estates. First, if the politicians should be involved, because they are the key stakeholders in the thing. Political party liaison committee must be involved, isn't it? Then you go to the private sector. You'll get some technocrats in the private sector who can know the right thing to do. Then you go to the third estate, which is called the civil society, which includes NGOs. Remember, private sector must also include academia, because we need that to come on board. And then lastly, we need the media to come on board. Remember, media was a stakeholder. They were shot. They are the people who suffer at the hands of trying to say the truth, because remember, if anything is going on when the media is not there, it's like something happening in darkness. At night, there are so many things that happen.
So if Raila wants to succeed?
I'm saying to say, according to me, if he goes this route, to go through parliament, bipartisan, I told you parliament cannot bipartisan. In fact, I was surprised when he said, we shall try to explore this route. And lastly, Eric, if I can just tell you openly, I said it, Raila thrives a lot when there are chaos. For example, there is something like Mandamano. He will do it in a way that you have no idea. He will win. He won it. But Raila is a very poor boardroom negotiator. And by the first statement he made yesterday, I'm realizing that things don't go wrong, they start wrong. If you take this route, Raila was supposed to say, no, first of all, let us do wide consultations. You cannot tell us it's going to be at parliament. You know why Ruto says they should live in parliament? He knows he rules parliament. And Ruto does not respect institution. He believes the individual there. Mr. Wetangula is there. He sees KRA, so-and-so is there. He sees he sees people in the institution, does not respect the parliament institution. And if he takes them to parliament, remember what happened during the election of the speaker and all these things. They said very clearly that Azimio is not a party. That's ruled by Wetangula. You go to Parliament, they say within the Constitution. So within the confines of the Constitution, he's captured all the key institutions that govern the Constitution. So if you walk that route, you are out of the way. They should think outside Parliament, constitute somebody outside, and once we have formed that body, then we can say, will politicians agree?
Let's take a break. I'm listening to all this and I'm wondering, where is the Kenyan? Where is the citizen?
Yes.
What does a citizen need to do for the citizen to succeed? Watch Raila to succeed and Ruto to succeed. Those ones, they can sort themselves out.
Yeah.
Where does Ogolla succeed? 25 minutes to 9. This is Kenya's biggest conversation, the Situation Room. Please serve Prof some Minute Maid.
It's necessary. Minute Maid says, take a break. Sometimes productivity can go low, strategy for success.
Yes.
Productivity can go low. So the amazing flavors, apple, mango, pulpy orange, and tropical. Take a Minute Maid moment and then come back. Productivity through the roof. Moment with Minute Maid.
Thank you.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
Yolanda Mulwa, DJ Absolute. When the gang is together.
Got the sugar, got the spice.
Yorada.
Yes.
I have missed you like hot hamburgers. Yeah?
Like hot hamburgers.
Bad boys give more money than you can count.
Hey, bad boys give more money than you can count. If it's fun, it's funky, it's fresh, you're definitely going to catch it here. I don't know what you do every day from 11 a.m. to 3 o'clock, but if I were you, I'd tune in to
Sugar and Spice only on 94.4 Spice FM.
16, and we'll see sunny conditions at 16 as well in Nakuru. It's 17 and mostly sunny in Nyeri, and 15 and sunny in Eldoret. Looking at mostly sunny conditions at 28 in Mombasa, and we'll see highs of 33 in a sunny Malindi at 29. It's mostly sunny at 20 in Kisumu, and the sun is up as well at 18 in Kakamega. Cloudy conditions in Kampala at 20, and at 26 it's raining now in Dar es Salaam. It'll go to highs of 30. 13 and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 23 and lows of 12, and mostly cloudy at 27 in Lagos, going to highs of 32. We'll see highs of 33 in a sunny Kinshasa at 23.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Looking at heavy traffic, it's going out from the Nyeri Stadium roundabout on towards Huru Highway. Still heavy coming off of Thika Superhighway. Not so much from Kiambu County, but right around the Outer Ring Junction, still some. The Northern Bypass is busy. It's going to spill towards Kiambu Road, but then you'll be fine until you get to almost that junction of Muthaiga Square. It's not looking too poorly on Limuru Road this morning, so you just go with it. It shouldn't be too much of an issue. Very busy on the Eastern Bypass. Not quite sure what's happening then between the Cabanas bus stop and then inbound, or rather outbound towards North Airport Road and then towards the Eastern Bypass. But we'll keep an eye out for that and see. Let us know what might be happening there so we can warn folks ahead of time. SpiceFM KE on Twitter. Talk to us there and keep things moving.
Spice up your life.
Conversation continues 22 minutes to 9 after walking around the streets with sufurias on their heads. Conversation moves to Parliament. Bipartisan conversation about the reconstitution of the IEBC panel. Our guests this morning, we have Gerard Bitok, who is a political analyst, and also Dr. Fred Ogolla, who is a governance and political analyst as well, CT.
We seem to assume that we understand what the political leaders actually talk about. We actually assume that what we consume publicly constitutes what it is that was actually discussed by the politicians. Most times we actually have no clue, in all honesty. Even the people who supposedly support the leaders of these political parties, the people who know what the two leaders talk about are the two leaders. They're the ones who actually know what it is that they actually talk about. If there are agreements and why it is they take the path that they take. Sometimes we get to understand these things later as historical matters. When time has gone by, then you understand, oh, so this is what actually happened at that particular point in time. Now, we judge the consequences and the results of what we think are the understandings from what we see. Again, we must never lose sight of the fact that we're discussing the Kenyan politician, not politicians generally, the Kenyan politician, especially breed. The way they go about their business, the way they do what they do, how they look at life, the manner in which they treat the functions, the duties, the responsibility they have as callously as they do. The Kenyan politician is a very, very unique breed. So even when we talk about how it is we want to move forward, we shouldn't forget also that even Professor Gola, the people you say we should bring into, this experiment of bringing in bureaucrats, bringing in the technocrats, bringing in the fourth estate, bringing in church leaders, that experiment, it has been had. So long as these people we're referring to are Kenyans, okay? The difference between them and the politician is slim to the point of being non-existent. The moment you bring them into a position of leadership, they all tend to behave exactly the same way. So
therefore,
Eric's solution is what we need to keep considering.
Which one?
The Mwananchi, whom we like referring to as Wanjiko and Kwamboka and whoever else, is the one who needs to sit back and ask and say, the people whom I appoint to represent me always let me down. So what do I do myself as the person who elects these people? Because the moment you elect them, the representation seems to focus on themselves, not on you, the person who actually elected them.
Moga, let me tell you what. You are saying Wanjiko, someone who is hungry, who can put bread on the table to sit back and think.
Yes.
They will only think how to eat. In fact, I've been a politician. I know that. Money is agenda number one. And when money is agenda number one, leadership is agenda number two, the issue of morality is agenda number three, then the issue of economic prosperity is agenda number four, isn't it? And the agendas continue becoming useless as it goes. So according to me, I believe, and I believe very strongly, that we have very intelligent Kenyans in this country, very intelligent Kenyans that can offer economic, social, and political solutions to this country. But the thing is that they have never used their intelligence for the country, if at all they have used against the country. And why so? Because their intelligence, their morality, their spirituality, those religious leaders, tilts or gravitate towards the stomach, because they start by saying, okay, now Raila Odinga and Ruto wants to talk. Now the question is, what does Raila want? They start by asking, what does Raila want? What does Ruto want? Who can benefit me most if we take this route? And then they align. And that's why, like PLO Lumumba's of this country, we have now a CS for Treasury, Professor John Angdong. He has a very good CV, isn't it? How is that CV working in Treasury? You cannot tell. Does he not know what to do? He knows. How is he incapable? He is incapable. I'm trying to tell you, there's a way this can work, and I'm going to give a very what I call a very drastic proposal. If I'm Raila Odinga and Ruto, if they want to help this country, what they need to do is, first of all, they have to agree that if they're fighting because of the election, which was won or not won, they should not have a handshake in this year. They should agree that this year Ruto takes over government for 5 years. Then after 5 years, there's no election. Azimio takes somebody to rule government for another 5 years. During these 10 years, we can reform this country in a more fundamental manner without looking at short-term things. Because I can tell you now, if there's a handshake and Raila Odinga brings anybody to Ruto's government, immediately they start fighting. Who is more powerful than the other? Who shall walk on the red carpet? Who shall have a toilet when they're having a meeting? It will go to very, very useless discussions like that. But if we have a 10-year period where now we can sit back and say, we have like to sit back and say, now, which way Kenya? As now the 10 years has been sorted, their interests are done, it's easier to deal with that.
But Prof,
and then, yes,
we spent years. Professor Yashpal Guy spent years going around the country asking Kenyans, what do you want? They told him, created a volume like this, took it to Bomas. Kenyans come, discuss. Is this what you wanted? And Kenyans agreed, and we have a constitution. Okay? Kenyans already know what they want with their country. Why do we need to give two people time to tell us what we want?
Actually, we're not giving them.
We've already told ourselves what we want.
Actually, Eric, we're not giving. We are giving ourselves time, because if they come now, immediate campaigns will begin, and the next election is the issue, not the next generation. In fact, this is the time I'm trying to tell you. During that time also, I was trying to telling even Bitok when we were outside there, they'll be able to elect that MCA. Because do you know what's happening? More than 40 governors became governors, more because of the party they're associated with, less more because of their policy.
Of their competence.
I can tell you there's a governor, I can tell you Joho, in Mombasa. He had three manifestos. One manifesto was Raila Amolo Odinga. That's it. Like, if you shout the most, our leader is Raila Amolo Odinga. In this county, it is ODM. That's it. You finish your campaign and they get elected. Now, if in 2027, if Raila is not running, because we know very well he'll be president, isn't it? Or, for example, he will be taking Kalonzo or Martha Karua or anybody from Azimio to take leadership, no one will go to campaign hanging on a party. You'll go and tell people your manifesto. And I told you, for me, what Mandamano has given us in part of the pain we've gotten is this, that the time when winning an election was an end in itself is over. After you win an election, you deliver. If not, people's power will make you concede to something. In fact, even this should not go to the president only. It should go to your MCA. If he campaigned by saying, I'm going to lower cost of living, if an MCA can do that. If he does not deliver, people need to go to the street, that's Trabo and Jiku, going to the street in Siaya to remove those guys from office.
I'm going to interrupt you.
Yeah.
Before the elections, we shouted ourselves hoarse here about social contracts. This thing you're saying. We went to town about it. You were here also.
Yes.
Yes, so it's not as though this is the first time you come to the studio. Gerald has been here also. You know, these are things we've discussed. What is it that will guarantee the moral fortitude that a leader requires to be able to provide for the citizens what they know they must provide and what they promise? Because what we see are people who say things which they never do. Not complicated. Simple, straightforward. They don't do. And they seem to think it is okay to keep telling us more stories about what they want to do and still don't do.
Jumping off of that, isn't it about time that we just... I mean, we can pontificate about this for as long as the day is. But if we keep talking about the participation that the people of this country ought to play in its governance, in its democracy, be that what it may, that there must be the realization that the very small... Because, we can talk about all the leaders. We can talk about the leaders at the top. Join all of them. They don't reach 2,000.
But I think also...
Put all of them together. That number pales in comparison to the numbers of people that we're talking about over whom leadership must come about. But the very people, we cannot run away from the issues that we face today, and that continues to be my thing. If we're talking about the cost of living, if we're talking about the poor state of education, if we're talking about the poor state of health, if we're talking about so many things for which the people come into contact with every day, and we sit here in worship and glory over leaders who do not care about the people. They've told you in so many ways, but we choose not to believe them. They're telling you, pop and plain, this is how I feel. But we still manage to sit here every day and talk
convince
about
ourselves.
All the leaders tomorrow. No.
And we can't say it now, we give them 10 years. So
No.
Gerard,
yeah.
I think just picking it from where Prof has left it, I think he's being a political jihadist by proposing the measures that he is. Because we are a republic. There's a very clear procedure on how leadership is especially elective leadership is achieved. There's a democratic process that involves a vote, that involves a people who come and say, Eric, we are going to vote for you, we are going to give you this position. So if you want to turn positions into things that we are going to dish out as candy, because Prof is shouting the loudest, so we say, okay, Prof, we're tulia kidogo, tutakupea. You don't have to go through the process of democracy and a vote. We're going to give you where upeleka yako miaka tano. I think we've made enough progress democratically to go back there and start thinking that we can get to a point where few people, because that's where Prof is taking us, that we're also giving that small constituency an opportunity now to even decide for us about the presidency. That we don't need a vote. Wafanye miaka 5 alafu William aseme sasa wewe
Gerald, I'm going to interrupt just as I interrupted Prof.
But I've not even spoken.
You have spoken. You see,
you have not had my thoughts.
This is the it's not as though you are not making sense. You are. It's not as though Prof was not making sense. Prof was making sense. But that's not the point. That's not what we're dealing with here. It is clear that Kenya has gotten to a point where democratically there are things we seem to take for granted. But the thing that we need to take for granted is a leadership that actually delivers. All these discussions we're having, how do we get to the point where they deliver? So, Gerald, now tell us.
But City, I mean, these people are voted in by people. People like you and me and all of us who are sitting here. These people do not find themselves there, like a tortoise or something. They were voted in. There's an electoral process that came. There's a process that announced them as leaders and presidents. MCAs were announced. People voted for these people. And I think also while we're having this argument, we must get away from the idea of a vacuum that we imagine that there are certain magicians who are going to sit in a corner somewhere. This same process of election involves the Mwananchi, the Wanjiku and Kompoka you're talking about. It doesn't involve aliens. These are people who voted. They chose a government. They voted in an MCA. They voted in an MP. They voted in a senator, a governor, and the presidency. This thing did not happen outside this space of a decision and the electoral process. There's nobody who was coerced. There's nobody who was whipped into making a vote for a certain person. But then again, even as a people, do we really imagine that Wanjiku as they are have the capacity to demand what you want to demand?
Yes, they do.
They do. They don't. I'll tell you why. No,
why?
They don't. I'll tell you why. City Muga, let me ask you a question. At what point did we start discussing the price of unga? When Azimio came out and says the price of unga is 250 and it's too expensive. And they're the same people that a few months ago told
it was
us
before that. It was even before
the
election.
thing is, now, look at the issues of mobilization of them. Why don't we have demos today? Because the politicians have said we cannot have it. You know? So certainly, Wanjiku is not demonstrated. If Wanjiku had the capacity as we want to imagine here, and we want to be very poetic about it, if they had that capacity, they would have said, you guys, you can continue with your negotiations, you can go to the boardroom, but we'll still stick on the streets because the price of unga has not gone down. Because all these issues that we've been talking about, the price of fuel, the cost of gas, the cost of all these things have not come down. If they had that capacity to want to be so poetic about it, they would have gone to the streets today. But they have not gone to the streets today because they don't have the capacity. The capacity ends at the vote. What we want to imagine, what you're telling us is the ideal situation, where we imagine that Wanjiku will be this person that we want to think about, that they hold their leaders accountable. We have all been part of the political process. He has been part of the political process. I've been part of the political process for close to 10 years now. And I can tell you, the Wanjiku that you guys are imagining here in this studio only exists in your minds. When it goes down to the campaign level, when you're even speaking to that Wanjiku, he's mentioned it very well about the manifestos. Those guys don't even read those things. So I've been on the campaign trail.
On the campaign trail, because you were there, let's talk about before the election, all right? So before the election, the issue of unga came up. And the candidate that you were supporting then was a deputy president, and he was pointing a finger at the handshake and saying, look at the price of unga. Look at what these people have done, that the cost of living is going so high, all right? Why was he doing that? Because he knew and he understood that that is the pain point for the Wanjiku. Right? And he said the way to sort this thing out is starting from the bottom. Remove the money from up there, bring it to the bottom. So at the bottom then can start shaking things upwards.
Now the thing is, and also...
Are you saying that Wanjiku then had power, but after the Wanjiku cast their ballot like this, their power ended?
Now the thing is, you
and did the candidates know? Did the candidates know this? Were the candidates playing a game on this, just knowing, I know, I want to corral you into the ballot. Once you dip your paper there, that's it. Your power is going to have the power.
I think it's also important to bring the contrast now, because they have switched positions. Before elections, the other one was saying unga is very high. Now we need to kick out the government, Nansha government.
Yeah, and
so
the
we
other
can
one was
stabilize
saying,
the prices.
it's
and the other one was
Ukraine.
in Nansha government, who is Raila Odinga, was saying munabweka kama maumbwa. The cost of living, the globally the cost of living is high, this hunger thing and all that. You are saying, I mean, he was giving us all the reasons, including Ukraine and Russia war, that I've actually not seen. I only see it on TV. How it affects my ugali is something else. But you must appreciate that ugali politics is not new. It has been a tool of politics for the longest time, and it just depends on where you're sitting. When you're in government, you defend it. When you're not in government, you switch it. Now, the reality is, if you go to the market right now, the price of unga have actually gone down. From around 240, 230, now you're talking about 190, thereabouts. The fact is the price of unga has gone down.
Mm-hmm.
You can go and prove that. You can go to the market and prove that. It has gone down. But the politics, but the Ugali politics has not gone down. The factual price of unga has gone down, but the Ugali politics is still very high because it is not about the price of unga; it's the politics in Ugali.
Let me ask you the question:
now, allow me to
price of unga that has
allow
gone
me to
down,
execute my thoughts.
Is it? No, you've mentioned unga. I have to ask: is it affordable?
Now, affordable is very relative. Even you you talk about the cost of fuel; it's relative. Someone like Prof might not feel the cost of fuel. He's okay. He has his car full tank. He drives well. For me, it might not be affordable. So issues of affordability is very relative. We cannot use that to gauge that. Just a little bit, Prof. I think I gave you some time. I never disrupted you. So when we are talking about the issues of unga, are we being sincere and honest about it? The fact that we are having two players now who have switched roles, and now we're having a totally different conversation on the price of unga. Are we being honest about the issues that we are discussing?
So let me ask you, as you continue with that, on that same thought, do you think the citizen who was concerned about the cost of living last year is sincere when they talk about the cost of living this year? What are the politicians?
They're not being sincere.
Wanjiku. Do you think Wanjiku has no legitimate reason
let's speak the cost of living. Let's speak the cost of living. What exactly are we talking about for Wanjiku? Forget about all the other crazy things of the cost of petrol and all that. Wanjiku has no business in that. Let's talk particularly about the price of unga.
Okay.
Right? The issues of the cost of unga, I've told you, that is a fact, and you can go and fact check. There has been a gradual decline in the price of unga.
Does Wanjiku consider 190 a good price for unga?
Even if, let me tell you something, Eric Latif. Even if you reduce there's a time even that we were even told that the price of unga was 100 shillings during Anchi government. I never consumed that unga.
Answer the question, Gerard Bueno.
So affordability is very relative. If you go to
Madare, yes, the fact is, yes, the unga was at some point 230. It has come to 190. Is that the price that Wanjiku considers?
Now, I've told you this. Affordability is very relative. For someone, there are people even who shaga their own unga. Unaenda unanua gorogoro moja is I think around 90 shillings. You get 2 kgs out of it. There is someone who buys an high premium unga which would cost you around 300 shillings for an high product. They have premium products. So affordability cannot be used as a measure of the cost of living, because we can talk about accessibility. For me, it's about accessibility, and the only way to fix the cost of living is production. There's no other shortcut. You can demonstrate the much you want, but if you're not fixing the factors of production, then we are going to have this conversation for the longest time.
I think it's a big deal if you have something that's available and the people in the country can't afford it. That's a big deal.
So
it is a factor. Huge factor.
Unga inatoka wapi? Inatoka kwa mahindi.
What's your point, Gerald?
My point is, we must start having a conversation around productivity, not the shelf prices. For this point, it's a planting season. Let's talk about how much are we doing to ensure that we can produce more as a country and import less.
Okay.
Are we
having
that
to give some numbers, then we discuss them. Please. That's what I'm trying to say. Let me tell you what, Gerard, I'm an economist at the core. And I was actually telling people, I've been sharing on this set, that Ruto needed a hard-nosed economist, not activist economists like David Lee. And that's why even Gerard, you need to learn a little bit about economics here, that EU subsidizes electricity for their countries to a tune of 800 billion euros. You understand? Farm subsidies and food subsidies cost EU what I call 1.2 trillion Kenya shillings. And what I can tell you, using the right economic model, when a population cannot consume, there is no economic growth whatsoever. You like it. So if you're talking about production, we have to talk about demand, supply. And demand, it does not mean that how many people want unga. Demand in economic means that you need it and you can afford it. If you cannot afford a car, you are not among the demand for a car. If you can't afford unga, you're not among the unga. And an economic theory, which we now develop by saying that a government, in fact, even EU adopted this thing. I did my PhD in Europe. I was able to contribute the economic thinking of the EU. We said that a government should spend, even to the point of having a budget deficit, if that means that the people must afford what is called basic needs.
Livelihoods.
And when there was the global financial crisis, when it came with the pigs, Portugal, Italy, Greece, and Spain, we told the government in Italy, make them spend the luxuries they do, because Italians were not going to the beach anymore. They were not buying luxurious products, and they have luxurious products that keeps the economy. Germans and French were saying, how can we subsidize people to lie in the beach and just relax? But if they don't sleep in the beach and relax, the economy will collapse. So if no one can buy unga,
you can't eat ugali.
There's no progress. There's no progress. In fact, you tell
can
people
grow
about
it, but if you can't eat it,
it's useless. You must afford it. And I can tell you, even in Spain,
our time is up,
chicken
guys.
is highly subsidized because they know it's used a lot in restaurants, and tourists come to eat there, and that makes the economy grow. So I can
our
tell
time
you,
is up.
we
Our time
must
is up.
insist.
How do you fix it?
Our time is up.
You're not telling us how you're going to fix it.
This conversation continues. This conversation will
Subsidize
continue.
it now.
How
And
long
there's
are you
money,
going to
Eric. I'm telling you, there's
How
money
long are
this
you going
government
to-
collects.
Gentlemen, our time.
You talked about something.
Gentlemen, our time is up.
Let's watch what happens in this bipartisan, this thing that you're saying. There's no
It's a kind of
bipartisan. There can never be bipartisan. 9 a.m. Good morning, people.
So challenges, Gachagua expressed confidence in the country's economic recovery. Despite the cancellation of the protest, Gachagua warned that some criminal elements may still lurk. He stated that security agencies in the country are on high alert to counter any cases of insecurity that may arise. Now, a family of 2 of 5 victims who died during an accident at Amaboko area in Nyeri County have called on road users to adhere to traffic rules to avert loss of life on the road. According to a police report filed at the Keroka police station, the 14-seater Matatu vehicle that collided head-on with an oncoming trailer was speeding. A secondary school student and a 1-year-old are among the casualties of the accident. At the Keroka police station, the family of Alice Misiani gathered as they struggled to come to terms with the death of their kin. These as 9 people have been admitted at the Jaramogi Oginga Odinga Teaching and Referral Hospital following a road accident. The accident involved a public service vehicle and a saloon car. According to Nyanza Regional Traffic Boss Joseph Nganga, the 2 vehicles were involved in a head-on collision. And Ugandan President Yoweri Museveni's son, General Muhoozi Kainerugaba, has sensationally claimed that he will dispatch Uganda People's Defense Forces to protect retired President Uhuru Kenyatta. General Kainerugaba's tweet followed the invasion of Kenyatta's land on March 27, 2023, situated along the Eastern Bypass. In 2022, soon after Kenya's August polls, the general also in a tweet threatened to lead his troops to capture Nairobi, prompting his father to personally apologize to President William Ruto in what would have otherwise sparked a serious diplomatic row. Museveni nevertheless defended his only son as a very good general after promoting him to the rank despite stripping him of his role as leader of the Uganda's land forces. And the chairperson of the Commission of the African Union, Musa Faki Mahamat, has honored the service of African Union troops whom have paid the ultimate sacrifice in the mission to restore peace and security in Somalia. He spoke on the first anniversary of the reconfigured African Union Transition Mission in Somalia, ATMIS, that replaced the African Union Mission in Somalia, AMISOM, on 1st of April 2022 in support of the Federal Republic of Somalia's mission to tackle terrorism in its pursuit for durable peace, security and stability. In a statement, Faki commended the leadership of President Hassan Sheikh Mohamud for the important political gains and strong efforts that the federal government and security forces continue to deploy. He further praised the unwavering determination of the troop and police contributing countries in the support of the country's vision to achieve peace and stability. And South Sudanese soldiers arrived in Eastern Democratic Republic of Congo, joining a regional military force in an area battered by the M23 rebels. At least 45 soldiers touched down in the city of Goma in the late morning yesterday, with further contingents expected to arrive at later dates. The South Sudanese soldiers are part of the 7-nation East African Community Military Force, which was created last June to stabilize Eastern DRC. And the death toll from a major storm system that has lashed the south central and eastern United States with devastating winds and destructive tornadoes rose to at least 26. Tennessee, one of the hardest hit states since the storms began Friday, initially had 7 weather-related fatalities, but their toll there later rose to 9. Scenes of devastation were left in the path of the Tennessee tornado, which twisted trees, flattened homes into piles of wood and boards, and ripped walls from still standing structures. Still in the United States, and former U.S. President Donald Trump is gearing up for a battle ahead of his scheduled court hearing tomorrow. Trump is expected to fly to New York from his Mar-a-Lago home today to face charges related to harsh money payments made to a porn star. He then plans to return to Florida following his court hearing, where he will address his supporters. Trump has continued to deny any wrongdoing. His lawyer, Joe Tacopina, promised that any charges against the former president will be fought vigorously. This is Newswire. I'm Dennis Aseto. Good morning.
Traffic on Vibes Radio.
Good morning, my name.
Congratulations. You've seen the hand of the Lord. Thank you very much. I've earned another title today, this morning at SpiceFM. Mama Justice, I don't mind it.
Joel in Kericho.
Salama sana Heri, habari ya asubuhi.
Salama bwana, mambo namna gani?
Salama kabisa bro.
Mambo ya Inamoi kuliendaje?
Mambo ya Inamoi, vile nilikwambia ndugu yangu, alienda asubuhi na ile gari ya kwanza.
I must have missed it.
So did I.
Even if somebody was to render you irrelevant, there is still work you can do.
Okay, sawa.
I deserve to keep you accountable. You deserve to give me a report. You don't work for me. No, I don't work for you. You work for me.
Do you like that Freudian slip? Lovely, isn't it?
All right, just a little bit left on the Thika Superhighway. We're looking at that Pangani underpass heading into the city, as well as on Kiambu Road a little bit here and there. On Jogo Road also going out towards Landis, where then you'll see some traffic coming in from Lusaka Road. That still continues. That whole thing is doing the business. All right, still a bit of an issue on North Airport Road, hanging from Cabanas out towards the Eastern Bypass, which is, ebbing and flowing, getting rid of that early morning traffic. Lunga, Jogo Road, Likoni towards the interchange on Mombasa Road still continues a few minutes after 9 o'clock. Let's take a look at what it looks like in about half an hour, shall we? All right, SpiceFM, KE on Twitter.
This is The Situation Room, the home of hard-hitting political commentary and penetrating insights about the state of the nation. This is a talk radio experience like no other. The Situation Room, a place for hard truths, debates, and elevated conversations. The Situation Room, witty, political, engaging, deep, controversial. In the room, we have C.T. Muga, researcher, academic, seasoned political observer, a fountain of wisdom in these politically uncertain times. Ndu Oko, Nigerian by birth, Kenyan by choice, communications expert, Pan-Africanist, a truth seeker and believer in people power, and Eric Latif, agent provocateur, the man in the chair, seasoned journalist, news hound, a man who believes in punching up, not down. This is The Situation Room.
8 minutes
the
after
only
9.
Way
Good
to
morning and welcome to the final hour of The Situation Room. How you doing? It's Monday, the 3rd day of April 2023. We are just like that onto Q2.
Hey, now we can say it like that.
Huh? Q2. We're in
Quarter
Q2.
two.
Q2 is here. And City is just receiving his bonuses now from...
So share.
Well, I can only say one thing.
See, here, even his relatives heard us and they flocked to his house over the weekend. City amepata bonus. City anakula bonus.
I mean, with friends like you, surely.
No, it's good to share, bwana.
You know, people say that
when you have shares,
yes,
and they give you dividends, you share.
And if the dividends are many, you share with many people.
With many.
And with friends like us,
who tell
needs more
everybody,
friends?
yes, on my behalf and without my permission, you ain't learn it.
You don't need anybody else in your life.
I'm not going to be talking to you too.
Okay, so let's talk about our country, okay? And this time, let's just not focus it on the current Azimio, Kenya Kwanza, IEBC, this and the other. Let's talk about the structure of the governance system that you have in the country. And we want to talk about why the Kenyan economic system does not serve Kenyans. Those are not my words or thoughts. Those are the thoughts and words of Mwalimu Mutemi Wakema, who is a very well-known activist. He is a community organizer with Kongamano la Mapinduzi. Mwalimu, good morning.
Good morning, Eric.
Very good.
Good morning, City. Good morning.
Good morning, Mwalimu.
Karibu sana to Kenya's biggest conversation.
Asante sana.
The hot seat. To welcome you to the conversation, CT has the day's proverb from the Republic of Congo.
Yes. If the needle doesn't pass, the thread won't follow.
If the needle doesn't pass, the thread won't follow. There are several interpretations to this. Ndo, you can scroll down the mentions column. But Mwalimu Mutemi, when you hear this proverb, what's your interpretation of it?
Actually, it's the perfect introduction to the conversation you're about to have. Because I put it to you that even just listening to the previous conversation with the gentlemen who have just left the studio, and many of our conversations around this country, is that we are treating the wrong thing. We are addressing or trying to fix the wrong thing. Kenya and most of the states across Africa and most of the so-called third world were not created to work for Anjiko. They were created to work for the colonialists who created them. And we haven't fixed that. We talk about Kenya getting flag independence in 1963, but nobody really fought for independence. Because if you look at maybe the Mau Mau, there were many freedom fighters, but let's just talk about the Mau Mau. They were fighting for land and freedom, not independence. The people who wanted independence at that time were actually the ones who were working for the colonialists because they wanted to be in charge of that colonial state. And they did get independence, but they never fought for it. So the needle and the thread never followed each other. And we keep talking about the people who fought for freedom actually not getting
So the Mau Mau were fighting for land
and freedom.
And
it's
freedom.
Called the Kenyan Land and Freedom Army.
What is freedom?
Freedom is just being able to do what you want, and
on your terms.
On your terms.
On your terms. So you own your land,
Yeah.
and you do what you want on your terms. So that means you govern yourself.
Self-governance is a term that came from. It's self-governance, but that term came from the people who actually got the independence.
Okay, no.
The so-called independence.
For these people who are fighting for this freedom, are they fighting for freedom to make their own decisions? Freedom to determine what time they wake up, what time they sleep, what they eat, where they work, what they grow in their farms, so to govern themselves.
Yes.
How is that different from independence?
Independence is the way the independence was packaged is self-rule in terms of a government. You remember before the white man came, there was no, the state as it exists right now did not exist. The state was created, actually accidentally, if I could say that, because when the initial white people came here, they were exploring, they were looking for routes to go to India to get spices. And then they found a very wealthy land, a very wealthy, unspoiled, wealthy Africa. And they saw the opportunities. And eventually they decided, a few people decided, okay, we can extract some of these things and take them back to England or to wherever in Europe and make a fortune. And when Kenya was created, it was created initially by the Imperial British East African Company. It was a company. That's why Gachagua can talk about shareholding, because he is actually right. It was created as a company. And then once the Queen Victoria and the others in the UK realized these guys are making huge fortunes, they decided to make Kenya a protectorate. So that now the extraction could be managed and also serve the British Empire, which was collapsing at that time. And I will tell you how we were introduced into this economy, into that economy, that extractive economy. Initially, they built the railway that was meant to transport all our resources to the coast and then ship the stuff to the UK and wherever. They needed our people. Remember, slavery had just ended. Or not just ended, but had ended. And we talk about the last 400 years. The economy has been, supported by cheap labor, which is what slavery was about. And they needed more cheap labor to keep that production up. And so they came and said, Eric, you have this, you're living here in your hut, grazing your goats or doing whatever you do every day. But we need you to work in our farms because we need to grow coffee and tea and maize and wheat and all that. And we need cheap labor because we can no longer make you a slave. But you're going to make you a wage slave. So how do we do that? We are going to make sure that you start paying taxes. So you're in your land, grazing your goats. Someone comes from wherever and decides you're going to start paying taxes. You're going to pay a hut tax for holding a hut. And that hut has a pole at the center. You're going to pay tax for that.
For the pole tax.
Yes. and then you have a wife and daughters. They have breasts. You're going to pay breast tax, So you have no choice. And that's not a conversation you're having. You're going to be coerced. You have to do that because the state or the crown, as we used to call it, has decided. And so you have to, as a man, you have to get up and go and work and look for money. And then you're paid that pittance. That's wage slavery. So basically the last 400 years, whether it's the formal slavery or the wage slavery, is how this economy, the global economy, has worked. And that's why it does not work for us, because it was not meant to work for us. It was meant to work for the extractors. And the thing is, the economy is working for those it's meant to work for. Not the Kenyan society, but the individuals, a few individuals. That's why even when you go to school, you have a school system that filters a certain number, that cuts off. When you hear people have failed, whether you failed at class 8 or form 4, it's not that you did not get educated. It's only that we need
according to a number.
We need a certain number of managers or supervisors or workers in this sector. And so we have to find a way to cut off that number. So you have a lot of people walking around traumatized that they failed in exams. And yet it's not that they failed. It's just that the economy does not need them. And scarcity, the scarcity of people creates competition for jobs. And then you can lower the amount you pay people. That's why an average graduate earns 50,000 and has been earning 50,000 for the last 20 years. In Kenya, the number of people who are earning over 100,000 in this country is shocking.
So you're saying the economic system is still being controlled by the colonizer?
So what the colonizer was very clever is, and I think the British learnt this from India when they were leaving India, because they were being pushed.
May I suggest that they learnt this within their own neighborhood?
Initially,
before they even went to India, what they'd done to the Scots, what they'd done to the Welsh, what they'd done to the Irish, they had figured this system. By the time they're now exporting this expertise,
it worked.
The experiment, they had seen how it works locally, and
they refined it.
They
refined it. They refined it. It's been refined in the last, actually even further in the last 150 years, because the economic system exists right now. It's just the last one, the feudal system, whereby you take up all the land, and then you make those who are working that land now come to work for you for
let's take a step back. The land actually is theirs. You come and take it, you divide it up, and having divided it up, you then allow them to work on that land and then pay you for land which originally
initially
theirs.
It wasn't theirs.
Yes.
Initially it was, people used to just one used to go around and you farm where you want to farm. So this person becomes a king or a lord or whatever, says this is my territory. And if you want to survive here, then you have to come and work for me. And you work, you farm, and then you give me a part of your
proceeds.
Your proceeds. That was before the wage economy. Later on, now that became the wage economy, and I was pointing out to how they also learned that how do you control a population when you don't have the numbers? You're a small group of people. Then you have to use the same people from within the population to control the others. So what do? You create this education system that filters people. Some people, you take them to London School of Economics and Oxford and indoctrinate them, then send them back to their own countries I'm very specific.
To carry out your wishes.
To carry out the wishes. If you look at almost all the PMs, prime ministers or presidents, who...
The first presidents and the first...
of the Commonwealth.
Yes.
All of them went to LSE. From Jomo Kenyatta to Moi Kibaki to... Just look around the Commonwealth. Most of former British colonies, or Oxford or Harvard or the Ivy League, because it's part of that system. Then they send these guys back. They're called the corporate elites. These guys do not think they're even Kenyan or African, although they are black. They think they belong to that system, and that's where. When I started with flag independence, is that when those guys were handed over power at independence, they were not being handed over power to work for the people of Kenya. It's for the global system. I hope that makes sense.
Well, for me, it makes perfect sense. It makes.
So if we got it wrong from that point, then we've been living a lie and trying to fix a lie.
So what are you saying? Essentially, what you're saying then, at the point, let's just use Kenya as an example, because we could look across the continent and there'll be very, very many countries that would mirror this thing that you're speaking about if we were to look at it through that lens, yes? So if we look at Kenya as an example, what ought to have happened when, look, the Mau Mau fought and there was like, okay, so give us this flag independence, so we hoist our own and we say this is ours now, we've taken it from you. But that was not enough, is what I'm hearing you say. What ought to have happened at that point? Should there have been, right, so you carry on, you go where you're going, but should there have been a complete slowing off of all these things that were entrenched during the years of colonialism and said, thank you very much, let us now find our own? But what happened was that there was just a proliferation of what had already been entrenched. That's what I'm hearing you say. What should have been the action when independence was granted or fought for or then gotten? What should have happened at that point?
If you look at the Kenyan independent government, there's something it has been resisting since then. The possibility of a conversation between the people, the governed, and how they want to be governed. It has resisted that from 62, 63, all the way. People have tried to force this conversation, including even the passing of the 2010 Constitution. If you look at the contestations, have been around people deciding what they want. Even devolution, devolving power, which was an attempt at realizing that centralizing everything does not work. So let's take the decisions to the people. That was resisted, and in fact, immediately that constitution passed, there was it began a very huge attempt to make sure that it doesn't work for the Kenyan people. Starving the counties with money, healthcare, trying to centralize healthcare, because it's all about, if you want to extract, then you need one decision maker at the center. It's not very easy to extract when you have to deal with 48 governments. So you need to take it back to the center. I think that is the brief that was given to the then devolution ministry. That's why the Ministry of Devolution, in the first government after the new constitution of 2013, instead of taking money to the counties, the money was given to the Ministry of Devolution. And it was given to the then minister, Ednah, current governor of the county I come from in Kirinyaga, who had written a paper to the World Bank about centralization, not devolution of power, centralization of power. That paper, I don't find it anywhere on the internet anymore. I think it was scrapped because there are ways to do this. But that's the person who was put in charge of devolution. And then they did what was done, which was called the Big Bang. The Big Bang was release funds to the counties without structures. Destroy the Transition Authority was starved of funds. Initially didn't even have an office. They had staff, but they couldn't go anywhere to. It was before now where we work remotely. They did not have an office, and they did not have money for programs to try and prepare the counties to receive these resources and functions. Okay, so that conversation, even when we had a conversation in 2010, just to to pivot back to your question, is that every time Kenyans try to decide to have a conversation around how they want to be governed, even whether they want to secede, what we've been seeing in Mount Elgon, or many other spaces where Kenyans have agitated at the coast and all that they don't want to be part of this union anymore. They are crushed violently because we don't want to have that conversation. We want to maintain the extractive colonial state as was. And the thing is, Eric and City and Lou, this state has failed because we've tried to make it work for 60 years, not just in Kenya, in Africa, across Africa, South America, and all that. All these states that were created when a group of men sat somewhere in Berlin and just started drawing lines on the map.
Sure.
Yeah? We've been trying to make something that was not created to work for us. It worked for the extraction system.
But it didn't work otherwise.
Us. But now it works for, if you look at, just one last point, if you look at who rises up within this state to the position of power, then it will tell you that it works for those for the extractors.
Yeah. Which extractor? Sorry.
Let me not mention names because I don't want to be sued and you guys to be sued. But I will tell you this: if you look at the last, who has risen to positions of governance in the most productive counties in this country, let's say Mombasa, Nairobi, Kiambu, or even the presidency. What is it that Kenyans know about them? What are they good at? And I'll leave it there. It's extracting,
Okay, look, excuse me. In times gone by, because the fallacy of all of this could be that, well, okay, these degenerative Africans, probably they could not think of a way in which they could govern themselves. But history proves otherwise, that we saw the kingdoms that had been established in Africa before that. Whether you're looking at the kingdoms that existed here in this region, East Africa down through the Indian Ocean and then through Zanzibar out to the south, whether you saw the kingdoms that existed in Southern Africa, whether you saw the kingdoms in West Africa, which I'm most, aware of, when I think of people like Usman Dan Fodio and the kingdoms that they ruled, we did not have an extractive nature of things. There was rulership, there was leadership, there was governance, there was a way in which economies played out amongst themselves.
Abundance.
There was abundance, there was a trade routes that were already happening. And somehow, interestingly enough, the wars that took place were not economic wars at that time. So it would be a fallacy then to say that this extractive nature that we then use as the benchmark for governance and leadership in so-called democracies today after colonialism is the only way in which it can happen. Because there is proof that it happened differently before. So then why would it be so difficult to shed this thing for 6 decades? That doesn't work.
Let me ask the question, is the pursuit of dominance an economic factor? If you look at history of nations and how, we're talking about the African kingdoms, for you to create a kingdom, you have to subdue some people.
Oh, absolutely.
But again, was it an economic factor of a fashion dissimilar to the one that we now see with the European colonialists? Because if you look at even the kingdoms that existed in those regions, there are 2 European gentlemen who did, well, 3 really, who did something remarkable. There was somebody called Otto von Bismarck, the guy called Garibaldi, and the guy called Broz Tito. People who in that particular time, brought all these wrangling little groups and brought them and made them a nation. But prior to that, emanating from around Turkey, there was an empire called the Ottoman Empire. You hear of the British Empire. The Ottoman Empire was vast.
Significantly.
Huge. Now,
came all the way to Dar es Salaam.
Yes, huge. But again, for you to have the sort of military might, there has to be some economic might somewhere. Go back as far back as even Alexander. Though one could argue that this issue of economics is what actually killed his empire, because his generals got soft. They got to places and they're living off the fat of the land.
They were sent to Congo to go and loot.
But for some reason, even with this, act of subduing, it was very interesting, because if you look at it, even in the subduing, the people over which they claimed power did not suffer for livelihoods. Look anywhere you want to look. You did not have an extractive. They didn't
Actually,
suffer for once.
What they did was
they made sure that the people that they ruled over,
in most cases, they assimilated you.
Yes.
Actually, they either did assimilation, or once they came and you ceded to their power, they will let you self-govern.
Go about your business.
Go about your business, as long as you pay some tax or whatever, allow their goods to pass through. In fact, I will put it to us that if you look at just Africa or Kenya, let's look at Kenya and our communities. Majority of our communities were even more democratic than
what we have today. Absolutely.
And the thing is, we normally conflate democracy with elections. Those are two totally. That's a capitalist thing that has been pushed by America, as part of their hegemony. I think we are even more democratic in our traditional societies than we are today. And democracy being governance of the people, by the people, for the people. We had these systems. For example, CT, if you are born in my village in Kirinyaga, and let's say you are 100 boys were born, maybe only one or two could ever rise to become elders in my community. And there was that process. When you were born, what did your family do? What did your clan do? Did they perform the rites of they prescribed by the society? As you rose, as you grew up, how is your character and behavior? How is the character of your parents? How is the character of your uncles and aunties, your clan? Because if your uncle goes and messes up somewhere with somebody's clan, your chance of ever becoming an elder is gone. Totally. So your entire society is being looked at, is looking at you. And then you become, you go through the rites of passage, maybe circumcision or whatever rite of passage you have at that time. Then you move on to the other stage, you're mentored into young adulthood, or you become a junior warrior, and then even then you're observed. You become a warrior, you get married. How do you raise your family? You become a junior elder. There's a whole process that you go through, such that there's a friend of mine called Otieno Mbok. He's an activist, and he has this mantra he keeps pushing since 2017. He says, "Operation No Elections." One. And we asked him, what does that mean? What would we do without elections? But he doesn't explain. But one day we decided to sit down and do scenarios around that. What if we didn't have elections? And we looked back and he said, as he said, there was leadership in Africa without elections before. How did our communities, how did the Kikuyus, Kalenjins, Luos, Kambas, Somalis, all these communities select their leaders? What were the processes? And so we did those scenarios. What if we said, we have a parliament of 349. We have the statistics from our population census. Can we tell each community to use their traditional processes based on their percentage to give us MPs for our National Assembly? How many of the current leadership would make it through those traditional processes? I doubt there's any. I doubt there's any in Parliament or in Senate would actually rise up to become even the president. Let's just be honest, because the traditional systems were thorough and democratic, as you're saying. The democratic meaning the entire society made that decision. Was involved in making that decision of who become, whether it's the village, and then you had devolved power to the village. Every village had a council, and the council deliberated on issues. I know of certain African communities, like if we had a conflict, you and I, would even sit for weeks, just not to make sure that I've won or we've won, make sure that we've been reconciled. I think we see that still in some of the Polynesian communities to date. Who are Africans who traveled all that way, that nobody wins. There's no winner take it all or loser whatever. Like you have to humiliate the kind of things you're seeing now. With Mandamano, I had a very interesting conversation. And the only point I'm going to make about Mandamano is that people were consulted when the Mandamanos were starting, but they were not consulted when they were ending. So just leave it there.
26 minutes to 10. Kenya's biggest conversation. Mwalimu Mutemi Wakema is a community organizer with Kongamano La Mapinduzi. He's here with us this morning. He is pushing this conversation. The Kenyan economic system does not serve Kenyans. It's rigged to serve somebody else. Who's that somebody else? Mutami, let's take this one. It's called the Minute Maid break. And that's why we tell you about Minute Maid and why you need it.
Yeah, indeed. So a minute to say, look, take a break from everything and take a moment to come back and be reproductive through all the flavors that Minute Maid has to offer. Apple, orange, mango, tropical. You take a sip and you get to bask in the freshness and then come back and go back to reproductivity.
This is the Situation Room, the only way to start your day.
All right, looking at cloudy conditions in Nairobi this morning, going to highs of 26 and lows of 14. It's sunny at 16 in Nakuru. We'll see highs of 25. We'll see highs of 25 as well in a sunny Nyeri. And sunny at 18 in Eldoret, highs of 24 and lows of 13. It's 29 and partly sunny in Mombasa, highs of 33 and lows of 26. And mostly sunny at 30 in Malindi with highs of 33. 22 and sunny in Kisumu, highs of 27. And we'll see highs of 26 in a sunny Kakamega at 21. It's 21 and cloudy in Kampala, highs of 26. And it'll go to highs of 30 in Dar es Salaam. It's 15 and sunny in Johannesburg, highs of 23. And we'll see highs of 32 in Lagos. It's sunny at 24 in Kinshasa, going to highs of 33. Monday afternoon in Beijing is cloudy, going to highs of 17. And at 6 degrees, Paris is cloudy, highs of 12 and lows of 2. We'll see lows of 1 in London, where it's cloudy at 3. 6 degrees and clear in New York, highs of 14. Coming into Monday. All right, so still looking at a little bit of traffic here and there in the city, but for the most part of it, I think we're all right. Coming off the Thika Superhighway, the traffic was heavy earlier, but much better now. Just the little bits and bobs of it left. We're looking at the Pangani underpass coming in from Muthaiga Square. A little bit there, but you should be okay. Out of traffic hour, as the clock says, through the morning. Talk to us on SpiceFM KE on Twitter.
Mature, intelligent talk every morning. Spice up yourself. Mornings done right. 94.4 Spice FM, Nairobi.
Camera continues, and we are looking back at our system that we have in governance and what how it's benefiting us. Mwalimu is saying, look, we inherited a system that had been established and set up by somebody else, and everybody who has now been operating in this system is basically running a system that was set up not to benefit the people, but to benefit someone else. And you're saying this is the colonial system. And 60 years down the road, we haven't been able to get ourselves off these shackles. I hear this conversation, and I hear it often, and it makes sense. But I always ask, how is it that 60 years, generations later, people have not been able to get themselves out of it? You talked about the others. Historically, we've seen empires and kingdoms. Just by having a kingdom means that there's one community that's domineering over others. That was what a kingdom was all about, and an empire. It's when you say the Ottoman Empire spread all the way across Europe, across the Middle East, coming all the way into Africa. Those are communities that are domineering over others. And they were domineering because they were doing something. They were forcing and subduing people and extracting something from them. Otherwise, what's the point of sending troops all the way? Yeah? But after they left, did the people continue serving that system or not?
They did.
So, if you look at the people who came here to set up this system, first of all, who are they? A lot of these were guys who could not make it back home in Europe. So they set out to go and look for fortune, first of all. And they raped and murdered and plundered and pillaged. And they made a lot of money, whether it's the opium wars in China or the looting in Africa. They did that. And then they went back ahead to create states to help them do that, and also create legal systems to do that. So that you're saying that the current education system, the current legal system in this country was created to now facilitate the extraction by subjugating the population. I was born Christian, but I'm no longer Christian. But there's something the Bible says, or even Quran. It talks about sins of generations going for 3 to 4 generations, and I think that is what you're experiencing. Because, for example, right now, as an activist, my parents, my relatives are not very happy with me being an activist. They don't question the government because the memory is still fresh of how the colonial state subjugated, beat up Kikuyus in central Kenya, put them in concentration camps and villages, with spikes all over, and raped women and kids. That memory is very fresh. I have a friend who's Serbian. Serbia was part of the Ottoman Empire 500 years ago. And they still blame, their politicians still blame
the Ottomans.
The Ottomans 500 years later, half a millennium later, because it's in the psyche. So but I'm not saying it's not changeable. It is changeable because we have evidence of where it has changed. You have Korea and Singapore. Why? Because what then we are required is visionary leadership, which is what you're lacking here. Because you have leaders you have to have leaders who have decided that we are going to end this now. And what we have with our current leadership that was installed or serves that system is that they are comfortable with the system. They actually work to become part of that system. Let me give you examples. I'll use the two current protagonists. What do we see when Raila comes and starts agitating in the 80s, late 70s, early 80s? The kind of agitation and struggle that he engages in, and then later on, the kind of struggle that he engages in. He tries to fight the system. He ends up in detention for, I think, around 9 years. And then what happens? I think he learns a lesson, or he's taught his lesson by force. So he comes and decides to cooperate. The cooperation, I think, starts from his detention. So he decides to join Moi and he's rewarded economically. He's given monopoly of the gas that you're talking about, the gas cylinders, Spectre International, or in the region. He's given the molasses plant, so he starts accumulating. And I think the lesson there, I don't know, I've never had that conversation with him, but I think the lesson he learned is that first seek the economic kingdom
and all
make
these
money,
other things shall
all
be
the other
added
things
to
shall
you.
be added onto you, because you're in an extractive colonial system. So just extract and make sure that you have a lot of money, apart from now being able to mobilize people. And you see this, the minor Jengas and the Who's have done the same. The Sonkos and the Johos and the Kafogos and the Who's extract and make sure that now you have enough economic might now to say, let us sit at the table, or allow me to sit at the table so that now we can discuss how to divide this cake. William Ruto has also been very good at extracting. That's why he has risen and he became the deputy president of the master extractor. Jomo Kenyatta, the son of the master extractor, Jomo Kenyatta. And if those guys are comfortable because the system is working for them, why would they change it? I hope I've responded to your question. Why would they change it? And if those are the leaders who we expect to change our lives, then, as I said earlier, we are addressing the wrong problem and the wrong issue. Those guys cannot take us to Canada.
Do you think Kenyans see what you're saying as extraction? Because as you mentioned all those names that you've mentioned, all right, these are, apart from, let's say, the Kenyattas and the Odingas, you could say post-colonial, post-independence, the other names that you've mentioned, there's several governors, like the current president, these are people who've come from rags and risen and been propelled by people to the positions that they occupied, right? Why did the people do that? Are you saying that it's not the people who propelled them?
It's not the people
that they
who
were
propelled
identified by this system thing and it elevated them?
What they did was they learned how the system works and they made a choice. So it's being where I am as an activist is something called committing class suicide. Because I was trained and taken to a provincial school, Nyeri school, and then University of Nairobi, deliberately as part of a conveyor belt to serve the system. But I've broken away from that. I know how the system works. I know how to exploit it. And the people who are very good at exploiting it, first of all, remember when we made that point of plunder, rape, pillage, and all that. That is what the system wants. It wants people who are very good at doing that, and it rewards them. That's why they rise up to positions of leadership. And the rest of us who think we can do better, that is enough for everybody, you're beaten down. Because then, for example, I'm sure there are billionaires in this country, even more than there are billionaires in this country who have made money without any tenders, without stealing from anybody. But we never hear about them. We never see them on SpiceFM or read about them in the newspapers, because that story does not align to the extractive system story. And of course, we know who owns the media. We know who owns this media house. It's part of that extraction system. And I don't want you guys to be fired. But the thing is, no, I know you're a good guy. But I know
Mwalimu, this system that you talk about, does it have an overseer? Does it have a structure?
It's systems sometimes are self-perpetuating.
So these are self-perpetuating systems.
So everybody knows that they're part of the system, but it's kind of a silent
it's like a
acquiescence to this thing that we all know what we're supposed to be doing, so nobody really asks questions or ruffles feathers. Is that what you're saying?
The robber barons City was talking about, the American robber barons who built America. One of the things they did was, create self-perpetuating organizations. For example, when you take a Coke or Minute Maid, today, do you even know who the founder of Coca-Cola is? You don't even think about it.
Think about the product.
You think about the product, and that has continued selling that product, has a shareholding, creates wealth for a certain number of people, and then it keeps perpetuating, and even now becomes self-protecting and learning. It learns and then gets the best brains to perpetuate it. And if you look at, there's something we were exploring with someone else. You look at psychopaths, you look at narcissists. A lot of them are in 3 areas: in religion, in politics, and in the corporate leadership. These guys who are...
And throw in sociopaths as well, please.
Sociopaths, yeah.
Yes.
Sociopaths. Because psychopaths eventually become, sociopaths. And these are people who, their work is, it's ego. They are tapped because of their ego and how the ability to then be charismatic and mobilize resources towards serving that system. And the reason why you introduced me as a community organizer with Kongamano na Mapinduzi, what we are doing after realizing that we're not just complaining, we are having the conversation we've just had should be had in history classes in primary schools and secondary schools in this country. But it will not be. In fact, our current president has been quoted saying that history should be done away with. And history is memory. Alexander the Great, when he came into Egypt, they sacked the Library of Alexandria. I don't know whether they cutted away our knowledge, African knowledge, or they burnt it to make sure that memory was removed of the memory that Plato and Socrates and all these came to learn in Africa. They were taught by black people. They came to learn, and then that's how they developed the current European philosophy, the Greek and the Roman philosophy. They learned all that from Africa. But if you don't have that memory, then you will think you are never great at any time. You are backward and mshenzi, as you are told, and the Europeans came to civilize that. Yes, it's Africa. Yet it's Africans who actually civilized
Europe.
Europe.
So what is the alternative to this system?
We have to educate ourselves. We have to unlearn a lot of the things that we've been taught. And we have to first educate ourselves. And then we have to sit and find ways to move forward. Because you can't go
and
back.
Create a new system.
We have to create a new system. We have to move forward. And that's, remember the conversation around us coming together and finding solutions. Because the solutions are with the people. And that is what has been resisted by this system. If you look at the Constitution 2010, keeps talking about public participation. Public participation. If you look at what the BBI case, what won, remember, especially at the Supreme Court, there were at the Court of Appeal, there were 5 major areas that were. But the Supreme Court tried to undo all of them. But the ones they could not touch were 2: public participation, because that was the spirit of that constitution. Can we have the people decide how to be governed? And I think that is the way forward. And that's why, as Kongamano la Mapinduzi, we're not focusing on elections, actually, not in the next 5 or 10 years. Or whatever. We're focusing on organizing our people, coming together, learning, unlearning. We do a lot of political education, having such conversations with the people so that people know where they stand.
So you want to create a new system?
We are working to create a new system.
Okay.
And we want to take over.
How do we trust that this system that you guys want to create will serve us better than
considering there is a system that will be created by human beings?
So the thing is, the theory of change we have is that if we have as many informed people as possible, people knowing about systems, how systems work, come together and now sit together and deliberate and decide how they want to live their future, then they will put safeguards to ensure. And we're not reinventing the wheel. This has been done. If you look at how Europe was developed, the current Europe, if you look at the systems, healthcare, education, transport, which is some of the places they have excelled, these things were developed by socialists towards the end of 19th century, early 20th century. And there were people who were oppressed by the then system, the monarchies. And these people came together and said, what are the basic things that we need? What is the basic thing that a government should do for its people? I think if we Kenyans sit down and say, what is the Kenyan dream? What are the basic things? I want to be able to take my kids to school and not pay through the nose. I don't want to be part of a commercialized education system. Manuel, because a state that wants a population that pays taxes then needs to make sure that they're healthy. So let's have a good healthcare system. Let food be affordable. Let people move from one place to the other easily. Like let's not be struggling with these basic things if you want to build a nation. And then people will say, how do we achieve this? You know, for example, I give an example of a lot of our studies, and I'm going to do profiling. We talk about cooks and watchmen, and we talk about lawyers. A lot of the watchmen around here are lawyers, and they come from. I know quite a number who have huge tracts of lands in Western Kenya, but they come, and because of the wage economy, they want to come and work for small amount of money in Nairobi so they can get cash, because maybe the cost of food or rather farming would be very high. What if we had a railway from Western Kenya that had a high-speed train? Because these guys now live in Kibra, Kawangware, wherever, in very deplorable situations. But what if we dignified them by making them live in their own home, in their own land, in Kakamega or in Bungoma or in Mumias or wherever, and they took a high-speed train at 6 a.m. in the morning, and within 2 hours they are in Nairobi, or whatever time they're in Nairobi, they come and do their work, get on the train in the evening and go back. So that when even the money they make, they can invest back to develop their farms. That's just a wild thought. So what if we had a government that then decides, okay, so we don't want everybody to come to Nairobi to look for opportunities.
Stay home.
You stay at home.
But isn't that what devolution was supposed to create?
That's what it was supposed to do. Yes. But then remember the Big Bang destroyed that, because the people who became governors were the former MPs, and of course they knew if you release money at once without systems, what happens? They're going to steal it.
But let me ask you this question, Mwalimu. Which country in the world can you say is not extractive? Which country has rather leaders who are not extractive? Because the communists experimented with us, the socialists experimented with their ideas, and when you look at the leadership, they were still extractive.
And that is the thing. That's you could call it human nature. So again, that's what you do. You put systems to counter that human nature. That's why Scandinavia has been thriving, because it's not said we're going to be capitalists, we're not going to be communists or socialists. It's picked the best what can work from each of these systems.
You could argue they are what you call a welfare state,
which is
what you're discussing here. What you're discussing here, meaning the focus of ensuring that the Mwananchi actually feels that this thing they call the government is actually looking after their interests, and you can see it.
That's actually what I'm pushing for. The communism versus socialism versus capitalism debate made it very hard for people to actually have these conversations openly. I remember which party was it? CPK, Communist Party of Kenya, was changing from SDP. And the registrar of political parties said, Kenya is a capitalist state.
You can't have a
communist party. And then she went to court and she was asked by the judge, which statutes are you quoting?
Where did he say?
But it's been hammered into us that we're capitalists. And people don't even ask themselves what capitalists mean. If you look at how we solve our problems as Kenyans, as we're struggling this economically, if I'm unable to fundraise for my own, let's say I want to do a master's, I would call my friends and family. If I have a hospital bill I can't pay, or even the Mama Mboga, they form chamas where they pull their resources to be able to achieve things. What is that? That's socialism. That's actually how, but even to the higher level, when America had the economic crisis in 2008, the capitalists destroyed the economy. They were going to destroy the global economy. How was it solved? They had to be bailed out by the resources from all Americans. That's a socialism. I mean, what do you call that, if you have to think about it? So humanity solves problems when we come together and think together. And that's what we are doing as Kongamano Mapinduzi. We are thinking, like, how can we, let's not start fighting, not keep fighting the system. Can we organize ourselves to be able to solve some of these problems and hopefully maybe build a new system?
Mwalimu, you've started off today by showing us where the problem is. We'll invite you so that you can now come and start showing us, okay, what would this other system look like and how can we get there? But thank you for joining us today.
Thank you so much for the opportunity to have this conversation.
Asante sana. Mwalimu Mutemi Wakema is a community organizer with Kongamano La Mapinduzi. Thank you for tuning in to Kenya's biggest conversation. Have a lovely day. It's 10 a.m.